Chapter 334, Separating in Life, Parting in Death. Chapter 334, Separating in Life, Parting in Death. The Kiara Sea, on a deserted island. With the help of Ya Zhongfeng's teleportation treasure, the four people, Yi Zhongfeng, Lin Yhe, Shiyang, and Xia Xinyan, had luckily escaped the devastating attack of Demon King Kaiyang. There was no one on this desolated island. Other adjacent islands were also barren, didn't have any plants or grass, except for grey rocks. Because of having used the teleport secret treasure, Yi Zhongfeng and Ling Yhe had consumed a large amount of profound qi, and thus their faces now were a little pale. After they had arrived on this island, they still couldn't calm themselves. Their eyes were full of shock and fear. One palm of Demon King Kaiyang had pierced through spaces, covered the entire sky and earth, and instantly raised the island where the four of them had stopped earlier. That horrifying power had severely shocked all of them, made them understand more about the strength of this third sky of the Spirit Realm Master from the demon area. One palm of a third sky of the Spirit Realm Warrior had crossed tens of thousands of miles while its earth-shaking devastating power didn't diminish, not even just a little bit. An island, as big as the God Stone Square, had easily been flattened, which was indescribably formidable. Kaiyang's strength was beyond Shiyang's understanding. This was the first time he knew that a God Realm warrior could be that terrifying. Little Bai, what should we do now? Lin Yhe wore a distressed look on her face, dusted off her round bum, gritted her teeth, and said helplessly, "This sea is no longer peaceful. Unexpectedly, that Demon King still could find us even though we have run for 1,000 miles away. I don't know if that guy can find us here. Go to the east, leave this sea as soon as possible." Yi Zhongfeng stood up, cautiously looked up to the sky and said, "We cannot continue to teleport again, otherwise, we will not be able to stand it anymore and may suffer from the backfire. We can only use the flying secret treasure to move." Ling Yhe nodded. Shiyang and Xia Xinyan blankly sat on a rock, looking up at the sky with their gloomy, dazed eyes. Xia Xinyan's grandfather had died, Xiyang had lost Linda, and the three people of Yi Tianmo's group had been forced to yield under the pressure of the future of their children and their races. Even the Snow Dragon Island had become the demon dwellers' paradise. The patriarch of the Wings race, Di Shan, and Yuru, had also become their partners. This misfortune dispirited and depressed Xiyang a lot even though he was always tough and optimistic. "We should go now." Yi Zhongfeng looked at the two of them, slightly shook his head and said, "Dead people cannot resurrect. The demon dwellers have appeared here all of a sudden. No one has ever expected that they had planned to come to the Sun Island and carry on this slaughter. Because of those who have died, you guys have to move on." Xiyang slowly nodded, his eyes were as sharp as a knife. "I understand. Let's go." Even though tears on her face hadn't been wiped out completely, Xia Xinyan stood up determinedly then asked Yi Zhongfeng and Lin Yhe, "Where are we going? Do you know the place where the great-grandfather Xia Jing who is staying?" Yi Zhongfeng thought for a while before speaking. "Although your great-grandfather is in his insanity, he still can be recovered if he takes the Vein Spirit Pellet. With his cultivation base, in addition to the predestined incident in the dark magnetic noxious mist, once your great-grandfather restores his sanity, his power will advance one step further. If he enters the second sky of the spirit realm, our safety is much more secured." Xia Xinyan used her white handkerchief to wipe out the tears and then nodded with a sad face, "I know that place. But, we no longer have the Vein Spirit Pellet. Even if we arrive there, it is just useless." "Who says so?" Yi Zhongfeng sneered and opened his left hand. The Vein Spirit Pellet he had already offered now appeared in his palm. Under the other three people's astonished eyes, Yi Zhongfeng said with a low voice, "I have done a little trick with this Vein Spirit Pellet. Actually, I have wanted to take advantage of this Vein Spirit Pellet to find your great-grandfather. After your grandfather's death, I have taken it back before using the teleport secret treasure." Xia Xinyan's beautiful face became angry. Yi Zhongfeng's face was full of embarrassment. He shook his head and said with a smile, "This Vein Spirit Pellet is truly precious. After I have given it to you, I was afraid that you would not keep your words, so I have stealthily done the trick. If I were not careful, perhaps this Vein Spirit Pellet could have no longer existed." "All right," Lin Yhe knitted her eyebrow, said impatiently, This place is only around 2,000 miles away from the Sun Island. It is not safe here. I think we should quickly leave this place first and then we will discuss later. Otherwise, once Kaiyang's soul consciousness arrives, we hardly leave here alive. Xiang nodded and said, let's go. The storage ring on Yi Zhongfeng flashed up, and a lozenge silver carpet suddenly appeared, floating in front of him. He revealed a faint smile, his body flashed up, then instantly reappeared on the carpet. He spoke to Xiang and Xia Xinyan. This flying carpet has been created by my evil master. Even though its speed is far less than that of the teleport secret treasure, its full speed is still much faster than that of the third sky of the spirit realm warrior. Hop on, you guys. While Yi Zhongfeng was speaking, Lin Yhe had casually gotten on the carpet then urged Xiang and Xia Xinyan to hurry. Xia Xinyan's face still didn't look good. However, she knew the current situation was very dangerous and thus quickly jumped on the flying carpet without overthinking. She moved a little toward Lin Yhe to spare some space for Xiang. Xiang looked up to the sky with dark eyes. He was about to jump on the carpet, but his face suddenly changed. A wicked consciousness, which was now only 1,000 miles away, was storming in from nowhere. Xiang understood that this evil consciousness came for him. That's the demon master Ma Qidun. The ice-cold flame's consciousness suddenly resounded from the blood vein ring. This guy has your soul aura, and thus he has locked you. He is the first sky of the spirit realm warrior. The distance of 10,000 miles only took him around half an hour. After half an hour, he will certainly appear here. Xiang's eyes became cold while he immediately sent out a message, can I avoid him? His soul accomplishment is higher than yours. As your soul has been targeted, it's hard to escape from him unless you can teleport 10,000 miles in just a flash. Otherwise, he will always know your position. The ice-cold flame helplessly replied, it seems you cannot escape from this fatal destiny. Within this short distance, you have no chance to survive being hit by a full power strike of a God Realm warrior. Xiang's body became freezing, he exhaustedly slumped down on the ground. Previously, he had always been full of confidence in himself as he had assumed that he had an innate ability and perseverance that no one could be compared. In only 5 years, he had broken through straight to the peak Earth realm from the elementary realm. Besides, he also possessed different kinds of mysterious martial spirits as well as peculiar living forms like the ice-cold flame and the earth flame. He had been expected to surpass everyone else in the future. Today's shock had destroyed his self-confidence, making him understand that his current peak Earth realm cultivation base was still weak. When facing the real strong warriors, he realized he was too fragile, didn't even have a trace of resistance power. The agitation that Kaiyang had brought about had pulled him down from the clouds, made him recognize his real current situation. Also today, he earnestly comprehended that only mighty powers could assure his safety in this cruel world. He had been relying on the people of Yi Tianmo's group or Daishan's group for a span of time, but at the critical moment, that relationship was no longer reliable, and he couldn't save himself. In this world, everything depended on their owns. One should not hope to entrust his life to someone else. He decided from now on, he would give up all the unrealistic illusions, and enhance his own strength. Unfortunately, when he realized these things, he was also about to be crushed to death by Ma Qidun. 3 of you should go now. I still have something to do. Xiang helplessly sat down cross-legged, raised his head looking at Xia Xinyan's heart-stirring face, then gently said, Xinyan, take care. I hope that we will see each other again one day. Xia Xinyan's elegant body slightly trembled while her beautiful eyes displayed an astonishing look. She caressingly asked, what do you want to do? She had realized something strange in Xiang's voice. Xiang had never been this depressed before. He seemed to give up his hopes. She and Xiang had known each other for long, but she had never seen Xiang expose this demeanor. She felt that he should certainly have made a bad decision. Little rascal, what are you doing? Yi Zhongfeng shouted, the Hengluosi is very complicated now. Your God Realm warriors have yielded to the demon dwellers, so what else do you want to do here? Do you want to suicide? Ma Qidun has locked me. He will be here in half an hour. If you guys don't go now, you will never be able to leave here. Xiang inhaled a deep breath and then spoke to Yi Zhongfeng, Control Xinyan and take her out of here. I don't know where you are heading, but I always want her to live well. Yi Zhongfeng's body shivered. Boom. Lin Yaqi stretched out her hand, placing it on Xia Xinyan's long neck. A soft, resilient flow of strength instantly infiltrated into Xia Xinyan's body, exhausting her body, putting her into unconsciousness. Before falling into the coma, she had struggled, wanting to come down from the carpet, but Lin Yaqi had grabbed her back quickly. Thank you. Xiang relaxed, revealed a smile and urged, take her away. I am happy to know you both. After she wakes up, tell her that in this world, she is the only woman who touches my heart. Take care. I hope we would see you again. Yi Zhongfeng's face was extremely heavy. He stared at Xiang and slowly nodded. I will tell her exactly what you have said without lacking a word. But, I hope that you can tell her about this by yourself one day in the future. After that, without waiting for Lin Yaqi to say more words, Yi Zhongfeng activated the silver flying carpet, turning into a beam of light, and dashing toward the east. The three of them disappeared in the horizon. Xiang sat on the ground, blankly watching them flying away. He subconsciously thought that he could hardly see them again. Chapter 335, Craziness. Chapter 335, Craziness. On a lonely island. Xiang was sitting indifferently, looking toward the east with empty eyes and a dark face. After a while, he stretched his hand caressing the blood vein ring, triggered his mind to send a message to the ice-cold flame and the earth flame. I will try to communicate with the ring spirit later, asking it to free you. From now on, our fate is over. The ice-cold flame kept silent, didn't respond to him. The earth flame seemed to have just woken up from some peculiar world. After having received Xiang's message, it was puzzled and hurriedly sent him a message to inquire for more details. As Xiang knew he didn't have too much time, he briefly explained the 10,000-year earth flame the current desperate situation. The 10,000-year earth flame didn't have any reactions, as if it was digesting his explanation. Xiang's blood vein ring was sparkling as the two living forms inside it seemed to be calculating something. Right at this time, Xiang realized the originally diluted sky and earth aura on the island was slowly gathering all of a sudden, getting heavily denser. He was astonished, didn't know what was happening. He couldn't help but look up at the sky. It was unknown when a crystal chunk, as big as a human head, quietly floating in the sky. This crystal chunk slowly descended, and it soon appeared above his head. Holy Spirit God! Xiang couldn't help but exclaim, raising his head looking at that crystal with astonished eyes. Why are you here? That island is over. I have dived under the ground to escape, following you living aura to come here. The Holy Spirit God sent out a message from the dragon crystal. You have promised to refine a body for me. I'm coming here to find you with the hope that you can fulfill what you have promised. Evil creatures have occupied the island that I had been staying. They could even detect my aura, and thus I had to escape. Xiang was stunned. After being bewildered for a moment, he spoke up helplessly. I cannot help you because, in a little while, my soul and spirit will both perish. You should get out of here soon, as far as possible. After having finished talking, without waiting for the Holy Spirit God, the ice-cold flame, and the 10,000-year earth flame inside the blood vein ring to respond, Xiang touched the ring, sending his consciousness inside. Ring spirit, I know that you can receive my consciousness. I am going to die. You should eliminate the confinement for the ice-cold flame and the 10,000-year earth flame so that they can be free. How should I arrange this? I only have half of an hour left, so you'd better tell me quickly. If you are too slow, when I am destroyed, I will not be able to do whatever you've asked. The blood vein ring had no reactions. Xiang was astonished, doubtfully thinking that might be his previous feelings were all illusions. There was no ring spirit inside the blood vein ring. Otherwise, why didn't the blood vein ring have any reactions at this critical moment? With that thought, Xiang's heart sank to the bottom of the glass. Perhaps God didn't support his intention of freeing the ice-cold flame and the earth flame out of the ring. This made him even more helpless and desperate. A long while later, the blood vein ring suddenly darted a vague stream of light which was abnormally brilliant and covered the area within 10 meters around him. What happened? The ice-cold flames and the Holy Spirit God's thoughts were transmitted at the same time. These two strange living forms with high intelligence displayed their extreme fear as if they were bound by a certain strength. Even the 10,000-year earth flame inside the blood vein ring was irritably impatient, wanting to get out of the blood vein ring. 3 flows of wonderful power instantly spread out from the blood vein ring's splendid stream of light, forcefully pulled the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, out of the ring. Under Xiang's disbelieving look, the Holy Spirit God was pulled down from the sky directly to the profound chi swirl on his abdomen. The ice-cold flame and the earth flame inside the blood vein ring turned into 2 marvelous flames, which were also pulled into that swirl at the same time. The original exhausted profound chi swirl crazily span all of a sudden as it had received the 3 peculiar living forms, the Holy Spirit God, the earth flame, and the ice-cold flame. Xiang used his soul consciousness to check the interior of his body. His eyes instantly flashed up a trace of horror. While the profound chi swirl on his abdomen was spinning with the breakneck speed, it gradually turned into a strange formation looked like a yin-yang fish diagram. That yin-yang pattern had the ice-cold flame on one side and the 10,000-year earth flame on the opposite side, while the connection between the two of them was the Holy Spirit God, the God that the Holy Spirit sect had worshipped. Under the constraints of some mysterious power, the 3 peculiar living forms had temporarily been fused together to create a strange formation that looked like a yin-yang pattern. The infinite, tremendous power suddenly burst out in the middle of the originally depleted profound chi swirl. This powerful energy was beyond his imagination. Xiang's body bones produced the crack-crack sound, and the unbearable pain instantly spread all over his body. At this time, he looked like he was suffering from the torture of the purgatory. It was as if bones and tendons of his entire body were broken by a powerful strength. That swirl crazily revolved at 720 acupuncture points of his body. The aura of Xia Shunchuan was insanely filtered. The negative strength flowing out from his acupuncture points made Xiang's entire body trembling to the point that he was almost unconscious. Suddenly, blood inside Xiang's body seemed to burn up. The strength of his blood massively rolled all over his body, gathering in his tendons, like an endless surging river. Second sky of rampage. In an instant, the swirl and the strange transformation that had been happening inside his body had led to the second sky of rampage, which had drained his body instantly. A staggering evil force from his body soared straight to the sky, forming a huge, white pillar of air. Ah! In the severe pain, Xiang roared madly like a wild beast. He was too painful that he tossed himself on the ground while the uncontrollable strength of his entire body was bursting out. Boom, boom, boom. When he was rolling on the ground, some 100-meter high, barren hills were struck down. The imposing mountains, which were hundreds of meters high, were like papers, couldn't even bear even one blow of his. Sizzle, sizzle. 720 acupuncture points exuded the white fog impetuously. The white fog was filled with negative power that could make other people tremble in fear. Suddenly, this negative power gathered, poured into his body altogether and then fused with his blood veins, increasing his evil momentum all the way up, like never-ending. Xiang's eyes became bloodshot with a maze of blood veins, looked like the eyes of a wild prehistoric beast. His monstrous, evil aura gave other people a feeling that he was bloodthirsty and ruthless. Swoosh! A bunch of black light pierced through the clouds then suddenly stopped above the island. In just a blink, a huge demon dweller with the body of 3.5 meters tall appeared in the sky. There was a curved horn on his head, his face was full of scars, his dark blue muscles were as firm as steel, his eyes were burning up with a murderous look, coldly looking at the deserted island beneath. Demon Master Mi Qidun of the 4th Demon Area. From above, with his cold eyes, Ma Qidun was bluntly watching Xiang roaring like a wild beast on the island. Boom! Ma Qidun suddenly descended. His feet stomped on a 300-meter-high mountain on the island, crushing it into rubble scattered everywhere. Xiang roared and growled while his body directly rolled toward that mountain. Little rascal, finally we meet again. When Ma Qidun raised his head, the curved horn on his head shot out demonic light straight up to the sky. After 2 roars, his hands flashed up in the air, then they discharged thousands of blood-dripping skulls. The small skulls had the size similar to that of a human head. Meanwhile, The big ones were as big as a small hill. Thousands of bloody skulls released a dense, undispersed, black demonic aura from their sockets and mouths. The skulls flew out from his palms with the breakneck speed dashing toward Xiang, producing a demon sound. Roar, roar, roar. Xiang's eyes were bloodshot, his body shriveled while his clothes were all torn apart. When thousands of skulls were rushing toward him, Xiang slightly bent his knees as if his body couldn't straighten up, raised his head up to the sky, crazily howling as if he wanted to fight against fate. The white air pillar reached the sky above his head, then suddenly expanded, turning into 5 horrifying, ferocious devils. The 5 negative devils, who had always been sleeping in his sea of consciousness, now had been transformed into physical entities thanks to the condensation of the negative powers. Each of them was more than 10 zhong, hovering in the sky like the demon gods in the high antiquity, seizing those bloody skulls viciously. Crack, crack, crack. The 5 10-meter-tall negative devils snatched the skulls that Ma Qidun had released and squeezed them, crushing them into powders that scattered everywhere on the island. The 5 10-zhong-tall negative devils had transformed into the physical entities, which were even more like the demon gods of the demon area than Ma Qidun. The 5 negative devils looked up at the sky, fiercely roaring and howling, and then swallowed the heavy demon aura that burst out from Demon Master Ma Qidun just like whales sucking up water. Rich demon aura, which had formerly covered the entire sky, disappeared instantly. It had turned into an energy source for the 5 devils to enhance their strength. Having taken the demon aura, the bodies of the 5 negative devils turned into black and white and were more abnormally horrifying. Their original 10 zhong-tall bodies quickly extended and became 15 zhong-tall great demon gods who looked like small mountains floating in the air, slowly surrounding Xiang. Xiang held his head up roaring as he felt different kinds of powers crazily running in his body, turning into a wisp of some invisible power, massively pouring into the huge bodies of the 5 negative devils. Ancient demon god clones. Impossible. Ma Qidun's dark blue eyes were overwhelmed with fear. He blankly looked at the 5 negative devils that were besieging Xiang, releasing a scream as he didn't even believe in his own eyes. Ah! Xiang bent his knees, releasing a sound like a roar which didn't sound like that of a human. The flesh on his shriveled, naked body split open. 720 acupuncture points in his body emitted a large amount of white smoke. His abdomen seemed to hide a huge ball of light where the dazzling white light was shot out. Every time the white light burst out, bald mountains collapsed one by one. You can possess such tremendous power when you are only at the Earth realm. Kid, you have to die today. Ma Qidun was horrified for a while and then suddenly reacted. Earth-shaking demon aura spurted out from his eyes. Even if you can mediate the ancient demon god clones, you still can't escape death today. Ma Qidun laughed viciously, throwing his hand up to the sky, forming a tight fist. A 10-meter-long giant demon saber appeared, tearing the void, falling into his hand. While Ma Qidun was holding the 10-meter-long giant demon saber, his horrendous momentum soared quickly. He then dashed toward Xiang with a cruel smile. Chapter 336, Suicide Break. Chapter 336, Suicide Break. The 10-meter-long, curved moon-shaped demon saber with ink-black blade appeared and burst out tens of thousands of demon lights. Ma Qidun was holding the giant demon saber, raising his head, releasing a roar like the demon god descending to this word. After that, he turned into a bunch of demon lights and instantly dashed toward Xiang. As soon as the demon saber hacked down, tens of thousands of mighty demon lights had led to strange phenomena in the sky and earth, making the cloud and the wind on this island fade away. Earth tremble, bottomless gully reveal. Thick, ink-like demon aura rolled out from those gullies absorbed by the demon saber was like the black sea water of the endless sea madly flowing toward Ma Qidun. The 5 10-zhong-tall negative devils were roaring around Xiang. The 5 devils opened their mouths, which were like black holes, swallowed the endless demon aura deep from underground recklessly. However, the demon aura was too much that it was not easy for the 5 devils to gulp all in a short time. Boundless demon saber, lead demon into body, Ma Qidun roared, and a large amount of demon aura wildly flocked toward the demon saber and Ma Qidun. Dense demon aura torrentially stormed forward and poured into Ma Qidun, making his body swollen instantly. In just a short moment, he became a 100-meter-tall demon dweller. The demon saber was also 3 times bigger, turning to a horrifying 300-meter-long demon saber. It was unknown why Boundless Demon Saber, one of the 3 great demon sabers of the demon area in the remote antiquity, had fallen into Ma Chidun's hand. In legends, it had been said that this demon saber could cross the interface between different worlds. The demon dweller holding demon saber could attract limitless demon aura from the demon area, turning them into a physical entity covering the entire body of the user. With the boundless demon saber on his hand, Ma Chidun's body was covered with 100,000 tons of demon aura and became a giant demon dweller who was 100 meters tall. In the earth-shaking howls and growls, the demon saber was like a mountain sharply slashing Xiang's head. Xiang was standing on the deserted island, holding his head up, looking at the demon saber covering the entire sky while his blazing red eyes glowed with many beams of cruelty. As soon as Xiang triggered his mind, the 5 negative devils, which were more than 10 jongs tall, instantly showed their fangs and claws, then soared up into the sky, joining forces to resist the boundless demon saber. The negative energy from 720 acupuncture points torrentially poured into the 5 negative devils. At the same time, at the swirl on Xiang's abdomen, an earth-shattering cold aura instantly spewed out and quickly overwhelmed his body. A flow of mysterious strength suddenly spread out from his body, seemed to stir the endless sea up. 100-meter-long water columns suddenly flew out from the sea around the island and darted forward. 7 water columns gathered and condensed right on top of Xiang's head. Splatter, splatter, splatter. The boundless icy power infiltrated into the condensed water columns and then turned into a huge lozenge snowflake enclosing Xiang. The rhombus-shaped snowflake looked like an imposing, spectacular ice mountain, which was tens of thousands of meters tall, pressing down on the top of Xiang's head. Cold lights burst out from inside the snowflake, and the eerie, icy aura was spreading out everywhere. Creak, creak, creak. With that snowflake as the center, the entire deserted island was frozen quickly. Wherever the cold lights passed through, everything was covered with hard blocks of ice. In just a blink, the whole island became a frozen island where no rocks or stones could be seen, except for plenty blocks of ice. Bop, bop, bop. 5 negative devils together still couldn't stop the boundless demon saber from hacking down. Under the horrendous pressure of the boundless demon saber, they had to keep retreating. The 5 negative devils then divided into 5 directions, showing their claws, which looked like an anchor, snatching the hilt of the boundless demon saber, wanting to lift the saber up to the sky, preventing it from striking down. Regretfully, it is just a clone of the ancient demon god. If it were the true ancient demon god, honestly, I could not kill you. Ma Chidun grinned ruthlessly. His giant body suddenly formed a defensive stance with one hand while the other one was holding the demon saber, striking down once again. The 5 negative devils couldn't stand this destructive demonic power and finally were struck down to the side. The demon saber had no more hindrance and thus released a slash violently. Boom, boom, boom. Terrifying explosions resounded on the island. The ice mountain on the top of Xiang's head broke down into pieces, even the solid layer of ice covering the entire island also burst open impetuously. The aftershock of the tremendous power spread out toward the sea around the island, causing the horrifying tsunami. The seawater torrentially rolled in, engulfing the entire island, and under the chill of the island, it was frozen once again. Xiang was staying hidden under the ice mountain, seeing the demonic power penetrating massively, crazily destroying the ice mountain, and crushing the ice mountain into pieces. He was overwhelmed with fear at heart. One slash of the boundless demon saber on Ma Chidun's hand had a great intimidating power that went beyond his imagination. He had never thought that a god realm warrior could launch such an earth-shaking power. The 3 mysterious living forms of the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, and the Holy Spirit god temporarily merged into one, which helped increase the icy power the ice-cold flame and the Holy Spirit god significantly. They instantly formed a mighty, 1,000-meter-high ice mountain blocking one strike of Ma Chidun's saber. If it weren't because of that, he believed his soul and body would have been destroyed. Being able to block one saber slash of mine, kid, even you are going to die, you can still be proud of yourself. Ma Chidun launched another slash but couldn't instantly smash down the ice mountain. He looked very astonished. Revealing a cruel sneer, Ma Qidun brandished his saber and growled, "Little rascal, Yang Tian Emperor is finished." Unexpectedly, this more tricky brat of the Yang family has appeared out of nowhere. If I let you live, your achievement in the future will be probably bigger than that of Yang Tian Emperor. I have to kill you today. While madly talking, Ma Qidun lifted his saber again. Million tons of demon aura crazily flocked into the demon saber, making the saber, which was originally 300 meters long, now swelling up once again. At this time, the demon saber was already 400 meters long. The horror of this demon saber almost crushed Xiang's spirit into pieces. Seeing Ma Qidun continue launching another slash, Xiang in the second sky of rampage quickly moved away, used his boundless power running inside his body to urge the electric shift instantly. Boom boom. His legs could not bear such a violent force and thus suddenly burst out, flesh and blood scattered everywhere. Xiang disappeared into thin air. At the moment that the boundless demon saber had hacked down, Xiang's body had gone. He had moved to another island. Boom. A terrifying, piercing eardrum explosion reverberated. Xiang was atop a mountain on another island, looking at the island where he had just left earlier with a horrified look. Under the second strike of the boundless demon slash, that island had been split into two halves. A 10,000-meter-long crevasse suddenly appeared, seawater massively rolled out from it. The splitting island was constantly exploding non-stop, and all ice blocks on the island had broken into pieces. In the earth-shattering explosive sounds, Ma Qidun angrily roared, searching for Xiang's trace. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. From 720 acupuncture points inside his body, thick white smoke suddenly shrank. In the next second, he felt a mysterious, intense energy was flowing all over his body, a part of which poured into the profound swirl, and the rest spilled over his bones and tendons, moving mysteriously. An outburst of roar came out from his brain. Xiang's body violently trembled all of a sudden. He felt his sea of consciousness churned up, caused by that mysterious energy's influx. Together with his soul's sublimation, the host soul in his sea of consciousness was getting bigger and clearer. Along with the surging waves, his sea of consciousness expanded quickly. In a breath, his sea of consciousness had already 3 times bigger. The power of the soul was extremely vigorous. Every ray of the soul was connected so that he could have a more profound understanding of different kinds of energy. At the same time, he had also detected an enormous wave of life energy like an unshakable mountain on Ma Qidun's body. That life energy was truly impetuous. Xiang's face suddenly changed as he recognized the huge power gap between him and Ma Qidun. Ma Qidun's plentiful holy spiritual qi was like a nuclear power plant in the other world which could provide him with endless power. Ma Qidun stood there, angrily roaring and howling. That sounds like soul-absorbing demon sound pierced through all obstacles, following Xiang's soul to penetrate his unstable sea of consciousness. Ow ow! The 5 negative devils suddenly faced up to the sky, howling. They seemed to have realized that their nest was about to collapse and thus turned into 5 beams of demon light shooting toward Xiang with the speed which was faster than the soul-terrifying demon sound of Ma Qidun. The 5 devils had returned to Xiang's sea of consciousness before the demon sound flooded into it. The 5 negative devils who had transformed into physical entities now returned into mirages as if they could freely convert between virtual or illusory bodies. As soon as the 5 devils entered the sea of consciousness, they immediately divided into 5 directions, scattering out horrendous negative emotions, which then formed 5 layers of formation technique. When the soul-penetrating demon sound of Ma Qidun struck was over, 5 layers of formation technique had been activated altogether, condensed and blended with each other to impede the soul-penetrating demon sound of Ma Qidun, protecting Xiang's sea of consciousness from being damaged. While his soul was trembling, Xiang's eyes suddenly brightened like stars. At the critical point of time, under the terrifying pressure of Ma Qidun, the aura of the Sky Realm warrior, Xia Shenchuan, finally broke through the bottleneck, helping Xiang enter the Nirvana realm. When the barrier of this new state had been broken, as Xiang's sea of consciousness had soon been built for a long time, he could instantly get familiar with the new realm. When his sea of consciousness gradually regained its normal state, Xiang felt the holy spiritual qi had reached a completely new realm. His body seemed to connect with the sky and earth, could actually feel the mysterious power staying hidden in the world. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. In the profound chi swirl, the yin-yang pattern which had been formed by the combination of the ice-cold flame, Holy Spirit God, and earth flame crazily was revolving as if its elements really wanted to fuse with each other. The sky and earth discrete floating around everywhere, under a call of some power, suddenly gathered at this place and penetrated straight into Shiyang's body. Shiyang's body sucked all the sky and earth aura around as if it had turned into a huge sponge. The mysterious ability to gather the sky and earth aura of the Holy Spirit God abruptly appeared on Shiyang's body. His profound chi swirl span, refining and condensing the sky and earth aura, forming extremely vigorous profound chi which then poured into the swirl. In the middle of the swirl, the ancient profound chi tree, which had disappeared earlier, now suddenly emerged again, crazily sucking the profound chi. Shiyang's momentum became intimidating. Chapter 337, Chapter 335, Crossing Arms and Doing Nothing. Chapter 337, Chapter 335, Crossing Arms and Doing Nothing. The Jiyu family, on the Thousand Swords Peak. The group of Jiyu Shao, Yu Qin, Cao Zhilan, Tang Yuannan, and Man Jiyu was moving in the middle of sharp, disparate sounds with a hazed look on their faces. Numerous warriors of the Jiyu family on the island were riding a variety of boats, carrying a large number of goods, moving toward the east. On other small, adjacent islands to Jiyu families, plenty people were also preparing to migrate. After the escape from the Sun Island, they all gathered at this place. A part of them was discussing to find solutions while the others were busy preparing for the migration. When Jiyu Shao came back, he immediately began to arrange, assembling all of the Jiyu family's high-class warriors, relocating materials with the fastest speed, and instructing his men to evacuate to the islands of the Heaven Lake Divineland in the Blackwater Sea. Cao Zhilan knitted her eyebrows while her jade-like hand was holding a six-sided crystal with a serious face as if she was communicating with the Cao family through that crystal. The four people of Jiyu Shao, Yu Qin, Tang Yuannan, and Man Jiyu stopped their convo and looked at her. After a long while, Cao Zhilan retrieved the hexahedral crystal with a gloomy face. Under others' scrutinizing gaze, she gently said, "I have informed my family about the major change on the Sun Island, but I haven't got their response yet. My great-grandfather has still been in the secluded cultivation, but he will receive the news soon. Demon King Kaiyang has borrowed the body of Azura King Jiao Hanyi to show up in the Endless Sea. He has the third sky of the Spirit Realm cultivation base with the earth-shaking power. If the two people Cao Qiu Dao and Yang Yi Tian don't take actions, I am afraid that no one in this immense Endless Sea can stop him." Tang Yuannan shook his head and slightly whined. Yang Tian Emperor used to be a hero before. If he were still in the Endless Sea, perhaps he would have a great fight with Demon King Kaiyang, but... Having heard these words, the faces of Jiyu Shao and others became odd, and they could only keep silent. That year, all forces in the Endless Sea associated to carry on the conspiracy to deal with the Yang family. They have also invited Tang Yuannan to join but gotten refused as according to him, thanks to the Yang family, the powerful demon dwellers hadn't dared to enter the Endless Sea. When Tang Yuannan had heard that Yang Tian Emperor had been captured and confined, he had immediately been aware of bad things. Not only hadn't he joined the rebellion but he had also persuaded the crowd to save Yang Tian Emperor out of the fourth demon area. Although Tang Yuannan had had foresight, he hadn't gotten everyone's approval. With the lead of Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin, the others had determinedly eradicated the Yang family. They had assumed that Yang Tian Emperor being under confinement was a golden opportunity once in a lifetime. Thus, they had joined forces to invade the Kiara Sea continually, which had led to the Endless Sea's current catastrophe today. The faces of Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin were obviously embarrassed after Tang Yuannan had reminded them the old story in combination with the current situation. However, although they felt a little bit regretful at heart, they still didn't want to admit their fault. Kaiyang has just borrowed Jiao Hanyi's body to appear, and this state cannot last long. They will probably leave soon. Jiyu Shao pondered for a while and spoke up with his knitted eyebrows. Jiao Hanyi had Sky Realm cultivation base, and thus his body cannot withstand Kaiyang's intimidating strength. Every day passes, that body will be damaged a little bit. 10 days or half a month max, Jiaohani's body will be completely crushed without the need of using the extra power. Yu Qin nodded. Tang Yuannan laughed coldly, ridiculed them. 10 days or half a month. Ha ha ha. In 7 days maximum, Hongluo Sea will be destroyed if there is no external support. The inheritance of the Three Gods sect, and also of Jiyu family, Dongfang family, the accumulation of thousands of years will be gone. Why Cao Qiu Dao and Yang Yi haven't shown up yet? Yu Qin knitted her eyebrows and snarled, do these two see death but really do nothing? Would they wait until the demon dwellers eradicate Hongluo Sea and see death arrives in front of them to start taking actions? Cao Zhilan revealed a wry smile, quietly bowed her head as she didn't know what her great-grandfather was thinking either. She just felt something wrong. As Yu Qin didn't see Cao Zhilan uttering a word, she snorted coldly while her eyes were a little unfriendly. Ah! Right at this moment, Tang Yuannan suddenly looked at the sky, pointing toward a direction and exclaimed in fear, what is happening? Everyone subconsciously raised their heads, looking up to the direction Tang Yuannan's finger was pointing. In that direction, torrential black demon aura started surging, like a fabric roll wrapping the sky and earth. In that torrential demon aura, a horrendous flow of energy kept coming up non-stop. Even it was thousands of miles away, people could still feel the peculiar violence. That is an uninhabited island which belongs to the range of the Jiyu family's power. It is because of the diluted sky and earth aura and poor resources needed for cultivation on that island, we haven't sent any man there to guard. Jiyu Shao was stunned for a moment while his eyes sparkled with strange lights and then said, however, deep inside the clouds near the island, we have placed a holy eye. After talking, Jiyu Shao didn't vacillate at all. A god sword suddenly flew out from his side and turned into a ray of light piercing into the Thousand Swords Peak, seeming to activate some formation technique. In the rumbling sounds, a huge crystal chunk suddenly came out from a corner of the Thousand Swords Peak as it was being lifted and pushed toward in front of everyone by the god sword. Jioshu closed his eyes, didn't say anything while his hands were constantly launching many beams of god light penetrating into the huge crystal. Inside the crystal, 3 strange sparkling god swords were quickly flying around that looked like flying dragons and dancing phoenix, as it was projecting some scene. In the fluttering silver lights, numerous dots of light condensed and showed a clear picture under everyone's attentive look. Shiyang. Tang Yuannan and Cao Zhilan couldn't help but scream with astonishment. Their eyes flooded with doubt. Jiyu Shao and Yu Qin also had a slight change on their faces, blankly watched the scene showing inside the crystal, looking at a person with soaring momentum crazily sucking all the sky and earth aura on the island. That is Ma Qidun. Tang Yuannan's face changed in fear while his body trembled. He couldn't help but exclaim out loud. Ma Qidun has found him. Such a regret. Jiyu Shao shook his head as he was wearing a regretful face, assuming that Shiyang would undoubtedly have to die. He was one of few people who knew that there was an animosity between Shiyang and Ma Qidun. That year, with the support of Jiyu Lai and Jiyu Zhenji, father and son, Ma Qidun had gone to the Soul Gather Pool. However, Shiyang had used some secret treasure and had almost destroyed his soul. After that incident, Mo Duanhun had captured Jiyu Zhenji to blackmail the Jiyu family so that the Jiyu family had had to pay a painful price. After Jiyu Zhenji had returned, he had told everyone the story in details. At that time, Jiyu Shao had also known that there had been an animosity between Shiyang and Ma Qidun. Right now, seeing Ma Qidun staring at Shiyang, although Jiyu Shao was still surprised, he understood the reason. Demon dwellers always took revenge for their animosity. Ma Qidun had remembered Shiyang's soul that year. This time, as he had entered the Endless Sea and detected Shiyang, he obviously had to kill Shiyang cruelly so that he could cool down his monstrous flames of anger inside his heart. How can it be? Cao Zhilan's beautiful face was agitated while her eyes displayed a disbelieving look. She shook her head and mumbled with a low voice, he couldn't gather the profound qi in his body and thus should have been killed on the Sun Island. How come he could run this far and also make such a big move like this? He and Ma Qidun should already have engaged in a fight for a long while. Tang Yuannan didn't believe it either, bewilderedly looking at the scene inside the crystal. The light from his eyes shot out everywhere like sharp swords, although I also don't want to believe it, That island clearly has some traces of fight. The island has been split into two halves, and there are plenty pervasive broken ice blocks caused by the ice-cold flame. Tang Yuan stretched his hand out to point at the scene while talking. This. How could this be? Yu Qin's wrinkled face suddenly shivered, her eyes shot out a shocking light. She kept shaking her head and said, that little rascal only has the Earth Realm cultivation base. Meanwhile, Ma Qidun is in the first sky of the Spirit Realm. Moreover, demon dwellers are very good at fighting. If we face Ma Qidun, I am afraid that we have more chance to lose than win. How can Xiang survive under Ma Qidun's pursuit until now? Whether it was Tang Yuannan, Ji Yushao, or Cao Zhilan, they all opened their eyes wide, gazing at the scene inside the crystal. Do you think we should do something? Tang Yuannan was stunned for a few seconds, then quickly got his senses back and said, that island is not far from here. I think if we are hurried, we can save him. Perhaps he will be the hope of the endless sea in the future. Ji Yushao's and Yu Qin's visages suddenly became strange. So? Tang Yuannan's face darkened. He asked, don't you think so? Watch a little bit more. If he cannot hold it anymore, it is still not late to go to save him. Jioshu knitted his eyebrows and said coldly, I always have a feeling that it is a trap. Maybe Kaiyang and other demon masters are all there together, and they just pretend to be weak so that we will go there and save him. That will then be easy for them to catch us all. Yu Qin also agreed with a nod. Even though we are in the God realm and have teleport treasure, there are still some limits. If we really get trapped there, under the strength of Kaiyang and other demon masters, we will hardly escape. Perhaps Kaiyang has arranged the evil heavenly demon wind god formation. Just think about Yang Tian Emperor's consequence. Tang Yuannan's face suddenly changed. Although his heart wanted to save Xiang, he was a little indecisive having listened to those two people. It was because he also couldn't believe that Xiang with the Earth Realm cultivation base could survive that long in Ma Qidun's hand. Xiang's profound qi cannot be reunited. I knew about this when I was in the Sun Island. There should be something strange here. Cao Zhilan's eyes were complicated as if she didn't want to believe that Xiang could withstand such a terrifying strength like that. Believing what was happening in front of her eyes meant her judgment was wrong. One day ago, she took the initiative to leave Xiang, drew a border with him, and wiped out her bud of love for Xiang in her heart. She didn't want to admit that she had a short vision. Chapter 338, A Complete Fusion. Chapter 338, A Complete Fusion. On the deserted island. Xiang's momentum rose up like a rainbow. Being attracted by his profound qi swirl, drifting sky and earth aura on the sea surface nearby rolled and poured into his body massively. In such a thick, suffocating sky and earth aura, the giant profound qi tree trunk appeared once again in the middle of the profound qi swirl. Xiang then absorbed it desperately. The strange living form, Holy Spirit God, had a special ability to gather the surrounding sky and earth aura. After having fused with the ice-cold flame and the earth flame, this ability was enhanced substantially. The amount of the sky and earth aura that it absorbed could be compared to the volume of demon aura condensed by the infinite demon saber in a short time. After having received a big amount of sky and earth aura, Xiang's depleted swirl now was overflowed with profound qi. Tens of thousands of strands of profound qi seeped into the strange space, making the ancient profound qi tree swollen all of a sudden. The ancient profound qi tree expanded. Each branch of the tree started to be crystallized translucently. His profound qi became solid. At the same time, his broken legs, caused when he had been urging the electric shift, were being healed under the powerful repairing force of the immortal martial spirit. Blood and flesh in his legs were reborn, and finally, his two legs were restored to its former state. Kid, you are powerful indeed. Ma Qidun's 100-meter-tall body was hovering in the sky above the deserted island, holding the infinite demon saber in his hand, growling, unfortunately, I will not give you a chance to grow. From the demon saber, a black demon light extended hundreds of meters like a galaxy in the ether. The demon light weighed more than 10,000 kilograms. It brought along the power of 10,000 mountains like a mighty dragon leaping up from the sea or like an ancient demon beast. It arrogantly released its full power strike down, which could shock the entire sky and earth. Xiang's face changed dramatically. Under the terrifying intimidation of the infinite demon saber, his sea of consciousness kept shaking non-stop while his host soul was crumbling, seemed like it couldn't bear that shaking pressure. As soon as the 5 devils realized the situation was not going well, they hurriedly turned into 5 devil shadows and instantly ran into the sea of consciousness. His sea of consciousness, which had constantly been shaking, finally stopped being convulsive. Xiang's host soul could regain its control of the body after the concussion. Seeing the demon saber blooming saber lights of hundreds of meters long, and also hearing the crackling sounds echoing in the sky, Xiang showed a trace of craziness in his eyes. Right at this moment, the blood vein ring burst out numerous lights about 10,000 jongs long. Bands of light covered the entire sky and earth, forming a huge dome that enshrouded Xiang. Crack crack. The 100-meter-long saber light of the demon saber hacked on the huge dome condensed by the blood vein ring's light as if it wanted to tear down the sky and earth. The dome suddenly distorted. The place where the saber struck down was deeply depressed down about 10 meters away from the top of Xiang's head. When a flow of blazing red waves spread out from the huge dome, the island instantly broke into 10 pieces. Xiang was terrified. Ma Qidun was also dumbstruck. Buzz buzz buzz. Buzz buzz buzz. The blood vein ring suddenly transmitted a wonderful sound as if an ancient soul, which has been silent for millions of years, got enraged by the demon saber and now produced a crazy, arrogant resonance. In the blood vein ring's sound, the ancient patterns on the ring's surface started to spin up mysteriously. Each pattern seemed to contain tens of thousands of creatures, and they were multiplying. Hundreds of millions of trembling mountain, and countless supernatural powers appeared gradually. Xiang's head was agitated abruptly. Xiang's spirit was little aghast as his soul seemed to enter a strange space on the ring surface. He saw an ancient god with the head lifting the sky and feet stomping the earth aura and ancient dragon gods wrapping around him. These ancient dragon gods penetrated into his body like bulging meridians. Every acupuncture points in his body were emitting dazzling god lights, and they seemed to contain all creatures. 720 acupuncture points seemed to hide 720 worlds. Each of them existed independently, contained multiplying creatures, and numerous high-class warriors were born and died. The flow of history of the past, present, and future appeared most visually. Ah! The ancient god stood in the middle of the vast, chaotic world, releasing unreconciled howling toward the depth of the universe. That sound shook countless worlds, flowing toward the end point of the universe, the end of the world. Boom! Xiang's head was in extreme pain. The host soul in his sea of consciousness expanded crazily all of a sudden. Hundreds of millions of streams of power impetuously poured into the sea of consciousness. The blood vein ring's surface cracked a slit that naked eyes were unlikely to see. The 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame was suddenly pulled out and then thrown straight into his sea of consciousness like a source of the nutrient. The 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame released a terrified cry. This third-rank heaven flame seemed to understand the constraints of fate and feel its life be in danger. Thus, it violently struggled to get out of the bind of some strength in Xiang's sea of consciousness. However, no matter how strong it was struggling to resist, it was just in vain. The 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame finally fell into Xiang's host soul and turned into the host soul's third eye, which was then refined and emerged in between his eyebrows. The unbearable pain came up from the sea of consciousness. Xiang held his head, screaming and howling like a wild beast. At the same time, Ma Qidun continually put forth all of his strength in swinging the infinite demon saber and striking one slash down. The huge, glowing red dome, which was covering Xiang, once again blocked the blow. However, numerous cracks started to appear as it seemed to be broken at any time. Xiang was screaming and growling. At the same time, the blood vein ring also burst out. Demon crystals of demon beasts directly flew out, exploded on top of his head and then turned into a beam of profound chi energy rushing into that enormous blazing red dome. Having received the demon crystal's energy, the surface of the red dome instantly recovered as ever. Ma Qidun roared indignantly, waved his saber and hacked down once again. Xiang was tossing himself on the ground, enduring the extreme pain, feeling the fusion of his host soul and the Nine Serenities' soul-devouring flame, sensing his surging sea of consciousness. The 5 devils, who were hiding inside his sea of consciousness, also seemed to realize the terrifying transformation and thus carefully stayed hidden as they couldn't escape from the sea of consciousness. In the peculiar space of the profound swirl, the ancient profound chi tree grew quickly. Each branch of the tree was sparkling like jade, turning into a solid state, which was overflowed with massive energy that could terrify other people. Thousands of miles away. While watching this scene through the crystal, the group of Tang Yuannan, Cao Jilan, Ji Yushao, Yu Qin, and Man Jiyu were all startled with their popped eyes, dropping jaws, and dull faces as if they were nailed down on the ground without being able to move and simply forgot who they were. Everyone was so terrified that their minds were all in shock, and their breathing stopped as well. They just blankly watched the explicit scene inside the crystal. A long while later, Tang Yuannan's body suddenly trembled as he awoke from fear. He was dumbstruck for a moment before flying away, ignoring other people. Right after Tang Yuannan had left, Ji Yushao, Yu Qin, Cao Jilan, and Man Jiyu restored their consciousness in surprise. The 4 of them exchanged looks, and they could clearly see the fear in each other's eye. The Yang family has lost Yang Tian Emperor, but then this Shi Yang, who is even more terrible than him, has appeared out of nowhere. If this kid doesn't die today, no one in the endless sea can suppress him in the future. Ji Yushao kept silent for a long while before looking at Cao Jilan and speaking with a low voice. When this little rascal grows up, even your great-grandfather Cao Qiudao cannot restrain him. Cao Jilan's delicate body suddenly shivered, her eyes were full of remorse. Until this moment, she knew what she had missed. Cao Jilan wanted to cry deeply in regret, and intensely repented of missing out the person who will have an earth-shattering future. If he doesn't die today, endless sea will be in his hand in 10 years. Yu Qin released a long sigh, looking at Cao Jilan, then shifted her eyes to the east, muttered, Zhongli Dun, who is the first rank in the power rankings, can't hold the candle to him. The Yang family is where heroes were born. We are going to save him. Cao Jilan's charming body slightly trembled. She suddenly cried, because of the endless sea, we have to save him. He will be the key to deal with the demon dwellers. Cao Ai. Man Jiyu slightly shook his head with a complicated face. You guys. Cao Jilan was floundered for a moment and then realized something instantly. She threw a glance at the other people, sneered, and said coldly, You are afraid now? If he doesn't die, even if the demon dwellers leave, we still hardly escape from this catastrophe. Jiaoshu bowed his head, didn't dare to look at Cao Jilan, and said with a cold voice, We used to deal with the Yang family together. As long as Shi Yang is alive, once he grows up, he will certainly take bloody revenge on us. Your Cao family will not escape from his vengeance easily. If you don't want to become Yang family's subordinate, it's better just to stand aside to watch and do nothing. He is too strong. This endless sea will not be able to control him. Yu Qin also shook her head, releasing a sigh. If Cao Qiudao and Yang Yitian know that the Yang family has this kind of person, they will also be willing to see his premature death. Due to our families and the martial spirit palace, these 2 people will not give him a chance to develop further. He must die. Ji Yushao bowed his head and slightly shouted. Cao Jie, endless sea really cannot tolerate him. Man Jiyu also shook his head and sighed, no one benefits if he is alive. Everyone knows about Yang family's strong and domineering deeds, and we have joined forces many times to deal with them. If Shi Yang is still alive, he will definitely break our homes and take our lives. Cao Jilan's beautiful eyes exposed a trace of confusion. She blankly looked at the crystal and hesitated. Ding-a-ling. Suddenly, the sound came up from the bracelet on her arm. Cao Jilan was stunned, immediately touched the bracelet. The crystal chunk that she used to communicate with the Cao family quietly emerged from her hand. Having used her soul to communicate for a while, Cao Jilan immediately paled. After that, she released a sad sigh and mumbled, My family also seems to know the things here. As you've said, they don't want him to live. As she had finished those words, Cao Jilan sat down helplessly, stopped clamoring to save Shi Yang, just dazedly looked at the crystal in front of her. Shi Yang didn't know when he had stood up. A mysterious sword was hovering above his head. On the sword, many closed eyes opened successively. The endless evilness from those eyes came in. Chapter 339, Sword Breaks the Void. Chapter 339, Sword Breaks the Void. Xiang bent his knees, looked at Ma Qidun's 100-meter-tall body and the huge boundless demon saber with his glowing red eyes. His face twisted, displayed a terribly ferocious look. His body's aura seemed to lead to the anomaly of the sky and earth. Enormous tornadoes appeared from the sea around the island. He stood there motionlessly while the blood vein ring emitted a dazzling rainbow. The giant mysterious sword from the chasm battlefield hovered around 10 meters above his head as if it was gathering all powers. Shriek, shriek, shriek. The huge glowing red dome, which was enclosing Xiang, was constantly being pounded by the demon saber. The gigantic dome was as thin as the wings of a cicada, as it seemed to be vulnerable, couldn't bear even one strike. However, it was still resilient in blocking continuous slashes of the demon saber without breaking until now. Ma Qidun roared and howled bluntly. Many beams of demon light shot out from his body, then condensed and hovered around his body without dispersing. The boundless demon saber, which weighed more than tens of thousands of kilograms, kept releasing terrifying 9 Serenities demon aura. The ground on the deserted island ripped off, thick, inky black demon aura torrentially spew out and then crazily poured into the demon saber, making one of the 3 great demon sabers of the demon area in the remote antiquity even more horribly violent. The mutation in Xiang's sea of consciousness had gradually subsided. His host soul and the 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame had blended into one. The 9 Serenities soul-devouring flame, which ranked the 3rd among the heaven flames, became the 3rd eye of his host soul. That eye scattered faint bright silver light dissolving into his sea of consciousness, continuously enhancing his sea of consciousness soul strength. At the convergence of profound chi on his abdomen, the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, and the Holy Spirit God had fused with each other, forming the yin-yang fish diagram. The ancient profound chi tree rooted in the strange space amid the swirl, sucking the amazing profound chi. Even the naked eyes could see the degree of growth. That ancient profound chi finally became imposing and mighty, obscuring the entire sky and earth. Due to the stimulation of the torrential surging strength, the mysterious sword flew out of the blood vein ring, strangely hanging around above his head. The closed eyes on the sword opened slowly. Every time one of those eyes opened, the evil strength of the mysterious sword seemed to double. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The mysterious sword hovering above his head seemed to have the power to twist the void. Strange lights suddenly burst out from the space where that sword was drifting around, and then, space rifts appeared. Inside those space rifts, people could vaguely see many visible colorful streams of light which were like shooting stars flashing and fleeting over the deep universe. A flow of earth-shaking evil aura slowly bred from the sword. Xiang was standing under the dome, feeling the tremendous energy of the ice-cold flame, the Holy Spirit God, and the earth flame on his abdomen as he could sense that the soul power inside his sea of consciousness was crazily spurting out and rolling into that mysterious sword. While his body's energy was wildly flowing away, more eyes on the mysterious sword had been opening. Ma Qidun bluntly released howls, also seemed to feel Xiang's mutation, and thus, a feeling of insecurities suddenly sprang in his heart. As he didn't dare to hesitate, in the middle of growls and howls, Ma Qidun condensed his body's strength, poured the endless demon power into the boundless demon saber, giving it a power which could tear the sky apart. Because Ma Qidun was trying his best to control the boundless demon saber, it seemed his huge body couldn't bear it any longer. As demon light shot out more and more, cracks started to appear on his body. Swoosh. The demon saber finally hacked down. The glowing red dome, created by the condensation of the lights from the blood vein ring, also got the extra support of the demon crystals, eventually could not stand it anymore, cracked once again, creating a terrifying rift. Dense demon aura had found the entrance, so they crazily flowed in and filled the whole dome. Boom, boom, boom. The demon aura that had flooded into the dome produced an explosive shaking sound all of a sudden. In that appalling noise, the enormous dome was finally fragmented, turning into 10,000 blazing red dots of light, and returning to the blood vein ring on Xiang's finger. Ma Qidun laughed cruelly. As soon as he saw the enormous dome had broken, he didn't hesitate any longer, violently swung the demon saber like a black band of galaxy sweeping across the two worlds, viciously slashing toward Xiang. He tried to crush Xiang into powder, destroyed his body and spirit without leaving any slightest trace of existence. Xiang grimaced while his blazing red eyes suddenly glinted with a trace of craziness. Ah! Making a sharp roar, he didn't overthink anymore. Instead, he poured all the energy of his body into the mysterious sword. On the gigantic sword, malicious eyes suddenly shot numerous intertwining evil lights aiming for the space rifts. Many flows of magical power from other worlds abruptly infiltrated into the mysterious sword. The sword, which had clearly been much smaller than the boundless demon saber, now suddenly became bigger, turning into a long god sword like a 10,000 jong high mountain instantly. The eyes on the sword, which were like eyes of a demon god, filled with all kinds of violent, crazy, desperate, and bloodthirsty emotions. The god sword dashed toward the boundless demon saber which was hacking down the top of Xiang's head without being in need of Xiang's control. There was no sound. There was no single earth-shaking sound. When the boundless demon saber and the mysterious sword collided, the sky and earth was abnormally quiet all of a sudden, so quiet that it terrified other people. Xiang raised his head looking up to the sky with his surprised eyes. Strange dots of light from where the boundless demon saber and the mysterious sword had collided slowly emerged, gradually got bigger and continually expanded. Wherever those dots of light passed through, the sky was strangely indented, the nearby islands just disappeared into thin air, and hundreds of millions of tons of sea water drowned everything down. Even the island under his feet also abruptly sank deep into the earth. Hundreds of millions of tons of sea water instantly flooded in, drowning Xiang. In the seabed, Xiang still looked at the sky. The surroundings were still tranquil. After that, Ma Qidun's 100-meter-tall body instantly turned into numerous demon lights, dissipating. After those demon lights had disappeared, Ma Qidun's real ferocious body finally emerged. It was unknown why Ma Qidun's right hand, which was holding the boundless demon saber, had burst open. His bones then turned into ashes. The right half of his body was a mess of flesh and blood, which looked like it had suffered a terrifying tremor that could crush his body completely. On the dark blue water, it was the first time Ma Qidun exposed his fear. He crazily screamed out while his left hand grabbed the boundless demon saber that had just slipped out of his right hand. His body turned into a bunch of black lights, flying toward the Sun Island with the fastest speed. He was fleeing like a beast. The giant sword like a 10,000 jong high mountain drifted around in the sky. A third of the number of the opened eyes on the sword was now closing successively. The sword gradually shrank and returned to its normal size. At the same time, Xiang's energy also stopped pouring into the mysterious sword. After having looked at the sky and watched the mysterious sword becoming smaller and slowly descending, Xiang hurriedly tried to use his mind to call the sword. There was no response. The mysterious sword seemed to be very arrogant, didn't put a little kid with the Nirvana realm cultivation base into its attention, continued sinking all the way. At the moment it dropped into the water, the god sword turned into a rainbow which then suddenly disappeared into the blood vein ring. Xiang used his mind to look at inside the blood vein ring and realized that the mysterious sword was silently hanging around at a corner without any lights or evil aura. All the eyes on the sword had been closed again. Everything had restored to its normal state as if nothing had ever happened before. Xiang raised his head, looking at the sky, and saw the sky was still distorted, and the space rifts hadn't completely healed after just a short time. What had happened could not instantly disappear. This whole scene reminded him of what the giant sword had done. The sword and the boundless demon saber had collided, creating a tremendous force that had broken Ma Qidun's demon body, crushed his right hand which held the demon saber, and splattered his half-right body's flesh and blood, causing him severe injuries. Ma Qidun had the first sky of the spirit realm cultivation base, and his strength was reinforced holding the treasure of the demon area. In the fourth demon area, he was ranked only after the terrifying top-class warriors Kaiyang and Ba Zun. After having arrived the Endless Sea, he had fought with the palace master of the evil wonderland, forced them to surrender, and carried on the slaughter all the way from the Kiara Sea to the Hengluo Sea. The number of high-class warriors who had died in his hand was countless. Such fierce and powerful masters with the boundless demon saber in his hand had suffered severe injuries on his body and a crushed right hand. Xiang felt aghast at heart. His soul consciousness quietly watched that mysterious sword with both delighted and frightened feelings at the same time. He was scared because he could not control this mysterious sword completely. He didn't know how to rule it or whether he was capable of controlling it or not. Moreover, he wasn't sure if this sword would unexpectedly do something rash. Xiang. At this moment, a call of Tang Yuan came up from the sea surface above Xiang's head. The sun god was riding the flame unicorn, bewilderedly gazing at the devastated island for a while, watching the big surging waves on the sea and the space rifts which were slowly healing, didn't know what kind of earth-shaking things had happened here. He wasn't sure whether Xiang still survived or not because he didn't detect Xian's aura even though his soul consciousness was covering the entire area. Under the sea, Xiang raised his head, looking at the flame unicorn, and he could be certain that Tang Yuan was here. After being stunned for a moment, he started floating to the surface and then instantly felt the powerlessness spreading out all over his body. The blood vein ring had stopped flashing and gradually quieted down. Tang Yuan immediately realized Xiang's aura and hurriedly rushed toward him. Chapter 340, Lord of the Future. Chapter 340, Lord of the Future. On the Thousand Swords Peak, the four people, Jiaoshu, Yu Qin, Cao Zhilan, and Manjiyu blankly looked at the crystal in front of them with dull faces. They kept silent for a very long time. Through the crystal, they had seen clearly the scene where Xiang's huge sword had suddenly appeared. After only one blow, it had seriously injured Ma Qidun and made his right arm burst out terribly to the point that scattering pieces of flesh could have been seen. This scene engraved in the hearts of four people so deeply that they could never forget it. Ma Qidun, the superpower demon master from the fourth demon area, together with his terrifying demon saber, was extremely arrogant and horrendously powerful. Even those who were watching the scene through the crystal could sense the tremendous strength that the demon saber in Ma Qidun's hand had spurted out. Jiu Shao and Yu Qin placed their hand on their chests, asking to themselves that if they had faced Ma Qidun, under his mighty power of his demon saber, they could have only sheltered on the edge of the road to avoid him, didn't dare to dawdle under his cruel slaughter. Meanwhile, Xiang was different. Not only had he directly resisted Ma Qidun, but he had also used that mysterious sword to injure Demon Master Ma Qidun severely, cut off one hand of the first sky of the Spirit Realm warrior. What was this concept? What was this situation? The four of them were dumbstruck like wooden chickens, even stopped breathing, didn't believe in their own eyes as they didn't believe that the scene happening on the crystal was true. What was Xiang's realm? What was Ma Qidun's realm? The gap was not only one realm. However, not only had Xiang been alive under that demon dweller, but he had also wounded Ma Qidun seriously. That incident was basically out of the imagination of the four of them, ruined their entire great plans. After having realized Xiang's power, the four of them felt distasteful as if they had knocked over the flavit bottle. Chaotic emotions surged in their hearts, which was hard to use any words to describe. It seems like the plan of borrowing Ma Qidun's hand to kill him is impossible. Jiaoshu was silent for a very long while, bewilderedly looking at the crystal mirror with empty eyes. His face became odd. I am afraid that the endless sea will be Xiang's world in the future. Jiaoshu sighed deeply, his heart was full of sorrow and grief. He subconsciously thought of the young generation of the Jiyu family, trying to search through his memories, but he couldn't find anyone who could be compared to Xiang. Jiyu Genji? Jiyu Linglung? Jiu Shao shook his head, beamed out a miserable smile from the corner of his mouth, secretly envy Yang Tian Emperor for being so lucky. From an unknown remote place, Yang Tian Emperor had casually found a descendant who was truly an innate talent with unlimited potential and infinite room to develop. Incredible, incredible. Yu Qin mumbled to herself with a low voice while wrinkles on her face shivered slightly. It seemed her decrepit body couldn't stand this shock. She was somehow disheartened, wondering if she was already old and was no longer suitable to solve the endless seas matters. This guy is really crazy. Not only is his body extremely sturdy, but his power can also achieve such violent intensity. Previously, at the hot spring, it was lucky that he had only used his physical strength to fight with me. If he had used the mysterious sword, I think, Man Jiyu displayed a look of lingering fear and said, I think I don't even have the guts to stand in front of him. Cao Jilan's beautiful face was gloomy and pale while her heart was full of bitterness. She had never felt dispirited like today. All along, she was very confident in her ability to evaluate things. The way she considered everything was very accurate. Because of that, after having discovered that Xiang couldn't gather profound qi anymore, she had decisively left Xiang, cut off the trace of subtle affair that had just budded inside her heart. As the successor of the Cao family in the future, she had grown up in the struggle of gaining benefits, deeply understood how important it was for a woman like her to have a grasp of a strong dependence. Initially, she had felt her decision was right. As she had assumed that Xiang couldn't bring her a better future, she had rationally let go of him. Regretfully, Xiang's performance today had completely smashed her usual self-confidence, torn off her mindset that she had been preserving for many years. She knew in this life that it would be difficult for her to forget what Xiang had brought her. Kai Yang will certainly kill him, Jioshu coldly shouted all of a sudden as if he was comforting or motivating himself. The better his performance is, the more chance that demon dwellers will not let him go easily. I think either Kai Yang or Bozun doesn't want to see the Yang family to have a descendant who is even more dangerous than Yang Tian Emperor. Right. He will definitely not have any room to continue developing. Such a regret for a future hero who is going to be destroyed. Yu Qin also agreed with a nod. She also knew that once Ma Qidun told Kai Yang about the fight between him and Xiang, no matter how busy Kai Yang was, he would desperately find Xiang and directly kill him at all cost. With Xiang's ability, demon dwellers surely would not stand idle, but they would quickly eliminate the future most intimidating threat in the shortest possible time. The island no longer existed. On the blue sea, there were only surging waves, huge tornadoes, or frightening tsunami. Xiang was slowly floating up to the surface of the sea. His entire body fatigued. The peculiar swirl which had been created by the fusion of the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, and the Holy Spirit God seemed to subside gradually in the middle of the profound Qi halo. Perhaps because the mysterious sword had almost consumed these three massive energies, they needed to have a deep sleep for a short while. His sea of consciousness was solid. His host soul quietly stopped above the sea of consciousness and fell into silence. Even the eye at his glabella was closed. Although the fusion of the host soul and the Nine Serenities' soul-devouring flame was temporarily stabilized, making them merge into one required a long journey. After the fight, Xiang's physical strength had been drained 70 or 80%. The backlash of the second sky of rampage had spread out, making his body more and more tired. When he floated on the sea, he realized that he needed to recover immediately. Otherwise, if he encountered another high-class warrior, he would not be able to survive. The flame unicorn was covered with a cluster of fires suspending above the sea. It was carrying Tang Yuannan, who was solemnly sitting with his eyes flooded with fear. After Xiang had surfaced on the sea, without thinking, Tang Yuannan instantly jumped off from the flame unicorn, reached out to grab him and then pulled him up on the flame unicorn. Without waiting for Xiang to utter any words, Tang Yuannan slightly called the flame unicorn. It immediately retrieved all the flames surrounded its body. As soon as the flames disappeared into its body, the flame unicorn turned into a dark red beast. Although its body was still hot, the intense heat was no longer frightful. Tang Yuannan held Xiang and quickly mounted on the flame unicorn. His eyes raked around, quietly releasing his soul consciousness and then patted the flame unicorn. The flame unicorn's four hoofs moved, turned into a bunch of red lights flying away as fast as lightning, and then disappeared in just a blink, leaving no trace. Half an hour later, on an island belonging to the power range of Three Gods sect, a red light flashed up, and the sun god Tang Yuannan on the flame unicorn, together with Xiang, appeared all together. Tang Yuannan didn't say anything, swung his arm, releasing a beam of great sun holy lights. The holy lights were like fire snakes quickly drilling into the ground. At the center of the uninhabited island, a marvelous ancient formation appeared. As soon as that formation emerged, it immediately launched a strong barrier blockading all kinds of external forces, didn't let any strength to penetrate. The sun god leaped up, bringing Xiang along with him, and then landed in the middle of the ancient formation. He then instantly triggered his mind to activate the ancient formation. A group of dazzling sunlight flashed. Tang Yuan, Xiang, and the flame unicorn disappeared again. When they reappeared, they had already been in a strange palace on the seabed. This palace covered hundreds of acres, but it was devastated, quite old, no longer had its majesty and glory after having endured wind and frost for so long. Countless strange waves rippled above the palace, blocking the blue sea water outside, not letting a trace of sea water infiltrate in. Although the palace was quite dilapidated, many barriers still existed, helping the palace on the seabed waterproof. After having arrived this palace, Tang Yuan obviously relaxed a lot, waved his hand toward the flame unicorn, commanding it to leave. He put Xiang down and looked at him blankly. What happened? After a long while, Tang Yuan broke the silence and asked with a solemn face. Xiang didn't have any strength left, leaned his body against a block of broken rock, squinted his eyes looking at this strange palace, and said with a frown, "Ma Qidun pursued me to kill me. I was almost dead. I have seen some scenes on the Thousand Swords Peak of the Jiyu family." Tang Yuan interrupted, frowned, and said, "I just want to know why Ma Qidun had disappeared. How come the demon master of the fourth demon area let you live? What did you use to fight off that Ma Qidun?" A trace of vigilance flashed across in Xiang's eyes. His mind, which had been relaxed, was now taut again. Perhaps because of the inner vigilance or the strength in his body had not drained out yet, the swirl that had condensed by the Holy Spirit God, the ice-cold flame, and the earth flame strongly span up all of a sudden. A flow of energy fluctuations which made Xiang tremble abruptly burst out from inside his body. As Xiang could feel the changes in his body, his mind was at ease a little bit. He subconsciously moved backward, quietly taking precautions. Right when he saw any of Tang Yuan's unusual reactions, he would launch his possible full-power strike instantly at all cost. Tang Yuan's face looked bewildered, but then, he was keenly aware of Xiang's cautions. "You are too cautious." Tang Yuan forced a smile, took the initiative to extend the distance with Xiang. He moved 10 meters backward, retracted his hands into his sleeves at the same time, and then slowly sat down under Xiang's shining eyes. Xiang was also a wise man. From Tang Yuan's gestures, he realized the other's friendliness, and thus, he revealed a gentle smile, nodded, and spoke to Tang Yuan, "Ma Qidun's right arm has been destroyed. Perhaps he might know that it is hard to kill me, so he has proactively retreated." "What?" Tang Yuan couldn't help but exclaim out loud in surprise. Chapter 341, Presumptuous. Chapter 341, Presumptuous. Ma Qidun is indeed a powerful demon dweller. I think the first sky of the spirit realm warriors of the Endless Sea will encounter difficulties when fighting with him. Xiang's face still wore a vigilant look. He secretly kept watching for any of Tang Yuan's expression changes and calmly said, "However, my body has enough tricks to be able to escape from death by Ma Qidun's hand. An ordinary God Realm warrior wants to kill me, ha ha ha, he will have to pay a painful price." He was worried that the more he concealed his real strength, the more malicious Tang Yuan would be, so he briefly told Tang Yuan the truth. After he listened to what Xiang said, Tang Yuan's eyes suddenly brightened while his face expressed a doubtful look. Like Ji Yushao, Yu Qin, and others, Tang Yuan looked stunned for a while without any reaction before he spoke up again with a strange voice. "You mean, you have severely injured Ma Qidun? There were other outsiders to help you. Did I understand that right?" Xiang nodded and revealed a strange smile full of confidence. Tang Yuan's face was even more eccentric. He couldn't guess Xiang's real situation and didn't know if Xiang's words were true or not after all. Thus, he stood in a daze, quietly considering Xiang's rhetoric. Xiang kept his face unchanged, increased his vigilance, and was on the alert to improvise. He and Tang Yuan weren't familiar with each other, and Xiang didn't know what this person wanted from him in the end either. Previously, with the 3 people of Yi Tianmo's group, he hadn't felt too much pressure when facing Tang Yuan. Concurrently, he was here alone. If Tang Yuan wanted to give him a hard time or wanted to deprive his secret treasures, he wasn't sure whether he could resist him or not. In such uncertain situations, revealing a well-prepared appearance would bring good effects. All right, about the details of the battle between you and Ma Chi-dun, I will not ask anymore. Out of his expectation, Tang Yuan-nan kept silent for a while, then suddenly revealed a relaxed smile and said, "Your body has star martial spirit. No matter what has happened, you are a member of the Three Gods sect. Everyone is a family member. I hope you are not nervous." After finishing his words, Tang Yuan-nan suddenly whistled. His whistle echoed continuously in the palace and on the seabed for a long time. His whistling sound spread out in all directions in this devastating palace, seeming to draw notice or call someone. Xiang's face changed. Not only was he not relaxed, but he was also more careful and then suddenly stood up. Tang Yuan-nan didn't look at him and continued whistling. Under his whistle, some formation technique of the palace seemed to be lifted. And then, Xiang saw many silhouettes suddenly emerge from the palaces within the range of 1,000 meters. Surrounding. These people were all wearing the Three Gods sect's tunics and had a profound cultivation base. Most of them seemed to be at the Nirvana realm, and 10 other warriors were at the Sky realm. These warriors of the Three Gods sect arrived here soon after hearing the news. They came out from the palaces around, gathered in front of Tang Yuan-nan, and respectfully said, "Hierarchy." Tang Yuan-nan nodded and solemnly said, "Presently, our God's sect is encountering the unprecedented experience of great danger and is unlikely to protect the 3 islands, the sun, moon, and star. The momentum of demon dwellers is ferocious and powerful. I hope that everyone can calm down and won't leave here for the time being. The moon god and I will be responsible for investigating all the activities of the outside world." Many followers of the Three Gods sect nodded and bent down, indicating that they understood. Xiang squinted, looking at those warriors. A majority of them were at the Nirvana realm. He quietly did a rough calculation. He found that there were more than 300 warriors here, which was a mighty force. In the Endless Sea, the forces that have more than 300 Nirvana realm warriors were only the Cow family, Martial Spirit Palace, and the Yang family. Given the situation that there was no moon god nor star god, the Three Gods sect could still gather this much strength, and that really scared Xiang at heart. Open the formation technique of the 3 lakes of the sun, moon, and star. Xiang needs to soak himself in the water of the lakes to unlock the seal of the star martial spirit. Tang Yuan-nan contemplated for a while and then slightly shouted. The old faces of the Sky Spirit Realm elders showed a glimpse of fright and couldn't help but look toward Xiang with astonished eyes. "Hierarchy." One of the elders hesitated a little bit, couldn't help but speak up. "Opening the seal of the star god needs approval from the elders. So, opening the 3 lakes sun moon star doesn't seem to be in line with the rules." Tang Yuan-nan frowned and decisively said, "This time is different from the past. Xiang has proved his ability. His body has the star martial spirit and I can prove that. In this critical point of time where demon dwellers are invading, don't let the rules bind us. We should do the things that need to be done." The Three Gods sect's elders expressed doubts when listening to Tang Yuan-nan. They were hesitant, uncertain, and didn't seem to agree with Tang Yuan-nan's decision. When Xiang becomes the star god, he will get the jurisdiction of the islands. I will cede a part of the islands, which are under my control. I will not force you to give up any of your islands. Tang Yuan-nan revealed a cold smile. Momentarily, demon dwellers are mopping up the Hengluo Sea. The islands that are under your control will soon turn into ruins. After these words, the faces of some elders of the Three Gods sect suddenly changed, hesitated for a moment before sadly nodding without saying anything further. "So, have you agreed with my decision?" Tang Yuan-nan asked impatiently. Having heard that question, the Three Gods sect elders nodded reluctantly, feeling that there were no other better calculations given the current situation. "Wait." Under the astonished eyes of the disciples of the Three Gods sect, Xiang suddenly stood up, and unhappily said, "Hierarchy Tang, what are you saying? When have I agreed to become the star god of your Three Gods sect?" Many of the Three Gods sect's disciples, including the elders who had previously nodded, were very unhappy after hearing Shi Yang's words. They looked at Shi Yang with a trace of anger. Tang Yuannan was also dumbstruck and asked, becoming the star god, the seal of the star martial spirit in your body will be opened, and thus you can learn its mystery. This brings you great benefits for your future achievements. It is not just that, but becoming the star god, you will possess great powers. In the god's sect, except for the moon god and me, everyone must listen to your orders. Moreover, you will get 1/5 of the number of the 3 god sect's islands. So, with those benefits, do you still need to consider? There are no free meals in this world. Shi Yang shook his head. I don't believe that becoming the star god of the 3 gods sect only has benefits and no restraints. I want to know what I need to do if I become the star god. Do I need to comply with your 3 gods sect's rules? Only minor things. Tang Yuannan smiled indifferently. Being the star god of the 3 gods sect, when the gods sect faces danger, you only need to be responsible and take care of the star gods' forces. When the gods sect confronts enemies, you have to kill the enemies and protect the gods sect's interests. That's it. What if the gods sect's interests are in danger, but I don't want to get involved in protecting them? Shi Yang suddenly asked after contemplating for a while. If so, the gods sect will put all their effort into retrieving your powers and deprive the star martial spirit in your body. Tang Yuannan naturally replied. If so, I am not interested in being the star god of your 3 gods sect. Shi Yang shook his head and casually said, I don't want to have restraints nor sell my life to anyone or any force. I don't need this star god's vanity. Invite someone else. Such a presumptuous kid. An old elder roared angrily and looked at Shi Yang with a dark face, such a shameless face. If you weren't so lucky to have the inheritance of the star god, being just a kid of the Yang family, I would have killed you. The hierarchy doesn't care about your blood, would generously crown you the star god, and even willingly cede their own interests to you. What else do you want? I told you already. I don't want any restraints. Shi Yang didn't display any fear as he asked with a cold face, You old guys, do you have problems with your ears? Hierarchy, please forgive me for my disregard. The elder's eyes emitted a fiery rage while he bent down to conduct the ceremony toward Tang Yuannan. Without waiting for Tang Yuannan to utter any words, he immediately opened his arms wide and coldly shouted, Fire rain of the blazing sun. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Rays of holy sunlight suddenly flew out from the elder's palms. The sunlight was like dense burning red lava quickly making its way toward Shi Yang's head. Shi Yang coldly laughed and then instantly released freezing icy power from the swirl which had been created by the fusion of the Holy Spirit God, the ice-cold flame, and the earth flame. Ice wind. With Shi Yang at the center, the surrounding area was blocked by the chill. The ground under his feet immediately formed into thick, solid ice. Even Shi Yang's body was shortly frozen. His body looked like it had turned into an ice sculpture. The ice outside his body was about 10 meters tall, emitting a dense chill. Many beams of fire rain of the blazing sun from the elder's palms shot out, aiming for the ice around Shi Yang. However, as soon as the holy cold sunlight touched the ice which had been created by the ice-cold flame and the Holy Spirit God, the holy light melted into numerous points of light. Under the horrendous icy power, those beams of light were instantly obliterated in just a blink. Shi Yang sneered coldly. One of his feet that was stuck in the ice strongly stamped down. An icy white power infiltrated into the earth and flew straight to the elder who had just taken action. Wherever this icy white power passed, the ground instantly froze, which was like an icy crystal bone dragon under the ground suddenly curving, revealing its ice backbone. Shriek, shriek, shriek. The elder's face changed in fear as his eyes showed a beam of panic. He hastily put all of his efforts into his hands, fused the profound chi and the martial spirit strength, and condensed them into a huge sun. Holy light glazed cover, the elder coldly roared. The sun on his body suddenly brightened as circles of holy light dispersed, seeming to squeeze the space forcefully. Ice. Shi Yang was inside the ice block, reaching out his finger toward the elder. His fingers suddenly spurted out thousands of chilly white rays of light that stabbed into the sun aperture. Creak, creak, creak. Under other people's scrutinizing looks, After the Sky Realm Elder had displayed holy light glazed cover of the three gods sect, his hair and beard were frozen. The sun had been covered by a silver ice layer, then actually froze without releasing any rays of light. The entire three gods sect were all dumbfounded with bulging eyes. Chapter 342. The Sun God, Moon God, and Star Gods appeared all together. Chapter 342. The Sun God, Moon God, and Star Gods appeared all together. After the Sky Realm Elder launched the holy light glazing cover of the three gods sect, his body was fully covered by circles of holy light which were used to resist attacks from the outside. Holy light glazing cover was one of a few sacred secret treasures of the three gods sect. It could fuse with the strength of profound chi and martial spirit and then condense into splendidly colorful glazing cover. Even when warriors at the same level released their full power shot, it was still difficult to break holy light glazing cover. After this elder cast the holy light glazing cover, he prepared more of his strength to counter Xiang's attack, wanting to shatter Xiang's arrogance with only one strike. Unexpectedly, even though Xiang had just entered the Nirvana realm, he could already launch a terrible icy force. Not only could the cold force penetrate the body, but it could even freeze the holy light glazing cover. Seeing this upheaval, everyone was in shock with their eyes bulging, suspiciously looking at Xiang. The icy cold gradually intensified as the elder of the three gods sect's entire body was quickly frozen. After a while, he became a huge ice block, his body was covered with mysterious ice, and he wasn't able to move. Xiang was also frozen, but it was not the same as the elder. Inside the ice block, not only could he act freely but he could also continue enhancing his body strength. After the elder was trapped in the ice block, his bones and joints were locked and his body strength began to weaken. The halo created from the sunlight's condensation now became a huge ice block, producing crack sounds. Even a ray of holy sunlight couldn't leak out of it, let alone injure Xiang. Tang Yuannan was also surprised in fear as a strange light shot out from his eyes. He finally believed that Xiang had truly fought off Ma Qidun. He also felt that the tremendous energy that had instantly burst out of Xiang's body was incredible, absolutely far surpassing his own realm. No warrior at the same level could have this kind of power. Therefore, after the entire body of the Sky Realm Elder had been frozen, he was dumbstruck as most of the other three gods sect's disciples had no reactions. Crack, crack, crack. Strange sounds echoed from the bones inside the elder's frozen body. For the first time, the elder revealed fear in his eyes and shifted his eyes toward Tang Yuannan with a begging look. Tang Yuannan came to his senses after he was startled and said, "Xiang, stop." Xiang laughed coldly, fearlessly looked at Tang Yuannan, and then bluntly said, "He started it first. He wanted to teach me a lesson by relying on his Sky Realm cultivation base." That old man, his actions weren't slow. Tang Yuannan was stunned, forced a smile, nodded and said, "I think he won't take actions anymore. Have regard for me, thaw the mysterious ice force on his body. It will have a great impact on the cultivation base if he stays there for too long. Nobody has bad intentions toward you. You should have mercy. Let it go." After saying those words, Tang Yuannan couldn't help but walk over in front of that elder and quietly condense the sun power. If Xiang really wanted to kill him at all cost, then Tang Yuannan could only help the elder get out of the ice block at most. Xiang remained cold, not replying, but instead, he silently looked at the Sky Realm Elder of the three gods sect inside the ice block. Under his attentive look, the elder's eyes were full of panic as they lost the previous griminess and replaced it with fear instead. Xiang coldly laughed within his heart. He was very satisfied with the elder's current face. At that moment, he then gradually released another flow of power from the earth flame. He retrieved the icy power and gradually enhanced the heat at the same time, slowly melting the mysterious ice. He was controlling the powers skillfully and carefully. If the earth flame's power increased too fast, the elder's body would probably become ill and burn into bloody liquid, but if it was too slow, it wouldn't be able to dissolve the mysterious ice. Seeing that Xiang stopped taking action, Tang Yuannan secretly released a sigh and slowly retrieved the sun power, which had been condensed earlier. Not long after, under the heat of the earth flame, the elder of the three gods sect finally was released from the ice block. His face was dripping with sweat. He moved backward and stood at the same place with other elders from the three gods sect, not daring to give any more ideas. The three gods sect's disciples, who had initially been resentful of Shiyang, now became obedient after witnessing his powerful force as well as his crazy moves. Nobody dared to show hostility in their flashing eyes, and so they let Tang Yuannan handle everything. The crowd that had been encircling Shiyang also slowly moved farther back. Through Shiyang's performance, the three gods sect's disciples were all aware of how terrifying he was. In this world where the strong ruled, after Shiyang had proved that he could easily kill anyone except for Tang Yuannan, no one dared to take any more risks. Human nature naturally made people scared of those who could exterminate others. It is hard to change. So, these disciples were very obedient and understood the situation, and they were afraid of death as well. Seeing the three gods sect disciples retreating, revealing expressions of both shock and fear, and not daring to come forward again to show their malicious intent, Shiyang was secretly happy. He was more aware that his own strength was the greatest protecting charm for him if he wanted to control this world. Possessing tremendous power, which went beyond many rules, allowed him to do whatever he liked in this crazy world without having to care about other people. Instead, it made people notice him. Although his current power was borrowed from the ice-cold flame, the earth flame, and the Holy Spirit God, the feeling of having this temporary mighty power delighted and excited him greatly. At this moment, he was more certain that enhancing his realm with his all-out effort, using the fastest speed to boost his own strength, was the most significant thing that he should work on. It should also be the goal he strives for in life. Rights, status, resources, these were only things. Once his strength had reached a certain level, it was as easy to obtain these things as flipping one's hand over, always possible to get. Open the Three Lakes Sun Moon Star. Tang Yuannan kept silent for a while and then suddenly shouted. The faces of the three gods sect's elders changed slightly. They wanted to say something but eventually kept silent and left in a hurry. Shiyang was a little bewildered before he spoke up with a frown. I have told you already. I am not interested in becoming the star god of the three god sect. Even if you open the Three Lakes Sun Moon Star for me to learn the mystery of the star martial spirit, I will not shoulder the responsibility and danger of the three gods sect nor bind myself to it. A majority of the three gods sect's disciples was secretly irritated, but no one dared to reveal their anger. Shiyang's previous performance had made people aware of his strength. Hearing his same words, the attitude of those disciples before and after was totally different. When he hadn't shown his strength yet, his arrogance had become the excuse everyone used. Some people had taken the initiative to besiege him. One Sky Realm elder had angrily wanted to teach him a lesson. However, after he had exposed his mighty power, even though the crowd still wasn't happy, they didn't dare reveal any sign of their intentions to deal with him. Everyone stood still on the spot doing nothing. Shiyang coldly looked at the three gods sect's disciples, sneering within his heart, as he now had a more profound understanding through the change of those people's attitude. Power. Power was the eternal truth that never changed. Only overwhelming power could make people change their attitude. All right. If you really don't want to become the star god of the three gods sect, I will not force you anymore. Tang Yuannan was quiet for a while and then continued with a complicated face, but, if the inheritance of the star god on your body isn't activated, the star martial spirit is merely an ornament. The star god of the last generation has chosen you, so even if only for the continuance of the predecessor inheritance, we will still let you soak in the Three Lakes Sun Moon Star so that you can learn the mystery of the star martial spirit. That one, Shiyang was stunned, looking at Tang Yuannan with strange eyes, and said bluntly, even if you do so, I will not be responsible for the three gods sect. I understand. Tang Yuannan nodded and said, you can ignore the obligations of the star god in the three gods sect. Now, go to the Three Lakes Sun Moon Star merely for the continuation of the star god's inheritance. I will not force you to do anything, so you should not refuse anymore. Shiyang was astonished. Although many of the three gods sect's disciples were puzzled, they somehow felt that Tang Yuannan might have his own intentions. Tang Yuan had been a part of the Three Gods sect for many years with great prestige. Thanks to his efforts, the originally declining Three Gods sect gradually recovered and regained its current status and power in the Endless Sea. In their subconsciousness, all of the Three Gods sect's disciples acknowledged Tang Yuan's ability, as they all felt that he wouldn't do anything without a purpose. If there aren't any restraints, then, Xiang's knitted eyebrows loosened, and he then leisurely said, if so, I will go to the Three Lakes Sun Moon Star. I am very curious about the Star Martial Spirit. I want to know what I will achieve once the Star Martial Spirit is activated. Ha ha ha, you will know soon enough. Tang Yuan beamed a smile and then shouted, open the formation technique. Welcome the light of the sun, moon, and star gods. After Tang Yuan shouted, the halo above everyone suddenly transformed. The peculiar halo above the crowd was like thin curtains which were being torn apart, becoming thinner and clearer. Hundreds of millions of lights like lightning flew around above the halo and intertwined with each other, creating dazzling colors, which became extremely mysterious. Xiang raised his head to look up at the sky and realized that it was unknown when the halo turned into a seemingly huge mirror. On that halo, countless stars, a scorching sun, and a waning moon emerged. The sun, moon, and stars appeared all together. Chapter 343, Miracle. Chapter 343, Miracle. The sun, moon, and stars in the sky converged atop the halo, turning it into a huge mirror which brightly reflected all the sun, moon, and stars in the sky. Miracle. This strange scene made Xiang shudder. He suddenly realized that an ancient sect like the Three Gods sect indeed had something that they had to pay respect to. He had stayed with the Yang family for a while and was shocked when he saw the holy mountain on the immortal island completely formed by pure crystal stones. When comparing it to the wonders of the Three Gods sect, the pure holy mountains, which were made of natural crystal stones, were a masterpiece of nature. Meanwhile, this place was actually a human-made masterpiece. It was unknown who had this kind of great force to be able to create such a miracle. Looking up at the sky, he realized that the sun, moon, and countless stars were shooting out many beams of strange light. Those beams of light intertwined together, slowly condensed into clear white milky water droplets, dividing and dripping into three places inside the halo. Come with me. Tang Yuan suddenly leaped up and descended to where the white water droplets were dripping, and waved at Xiang, indicating to him that Xiang should follow. Xiang was bewildered. He felt a little embarrassed and said, I am only in the Nirvana realm, and if I'm only relying on my real strengths, I cannot fly. Tang Yuan was stunned and felt a little strange. He subconsciously assumed that with Xiang's current ability, flying would be an easy task, and hence, he didn't need to drag Xiang along with him. Now, after hearing this, he immediately understood that the previous strong power certainly didn't belong to Xiang. I'll take you. Tang Yuan beamed a smile, quickly came to Xiang's side, stretched his hand, and grabbed Xiang by his shoulders. Xiang was instantly vigilant, subconsciously activating the strength in his body, ready to fight back. Tang Yuan was startled, immediately stopped his moves, and retracted his hand while forcing a smile. I don't have malicious intent. You don't need to be nervous. Being careful doesn't harm anyone. Xiang's countenance remained unchanged. He pointed to a disciple of the Three Gods sect and said, tell him to take me there. It was an old first sky of the Sky Realm warrior. Just looking at Xiang, the old man was already frightened. He was the kind of person who cherished his life. Seeing Xiang pointing to him, his face slightly changed. He seemed to be reluctant, hurriedly shook his head, dry laughed and said, my cultivation base is low. There are other people here with a higher cultivation base. You should find someone else. By saying this, he had disclosed that he was a cautious person. The one who was afraid of death was the kind of person who wouldn't act rashly. I want you. Xiang was persistent. The person cried out and quietly cursed Xiang under his breath. However, he couldn't avoid it and could only look toward Tang Yuan with pleading eyes, imploring him to convince Xiang to give up on his decision. Take him up. Tang Yuan said impatiently with a stone-cold glare. Go quickly. Don't waste my time. He forced a smile, bowed his head, and carefully walked over to Xiang as he was afraid that Xiang would suddenly launch a blow, freezing him in a split second. Xiang was indifferent as he stared at the man, waiting until he stood in front of him to say, "As long as you are honest, I will behave properly. If you are dishonest, ha ha ha, then I will not be very kind." The person's expression changed, and now he was even more careful. When he placed his hand on Xiang's shoulders, his eyes glanced at him while he secretly paid attention to the moving direction of the energy in Xiang's body. He waited until he was certain that Xiang didn't have bad intentions, then took a deep breath and carried Xiang up to the sky. A majority of the three god sect's disciples all had eccentric faces, their eyes looked in Xiang's direction with complex gazes. Xiang's caution was beyond their expectation. Not only that, but he had also been so accurate in choosing the old man who was afraid of death. Therefore, they believed that even if Tang Yuannan was determined to do bad things, he would not successfully achieve the desired goal because of this person who was now carrying Xiang along. Under Tang Yuannan's lead, Xiang and the other person slowly flew to Tang Yuannan's side. When the distance between them and Tang Yuannan was about 10 meters, Xiang suddenly coughed. The old man's face changed dramatically. He immediately slowed down and didn't dare to come close to his hierarchy anymore. Although the old man was frightened of death, his eyes were not bad. He knew what Xiang was worried about. To prevent Xiang from doing something rash, he was very obedient and didn't want to do anything that could irritate the Xiang. Tang Yuannan didn't know whether he should laugh or cry and just shook his head slightly, then pointed below, looking at Xiang to say, "The three central god palaces down there are the three lakes sun-moon star of the god sect. They can be considered the fundamental roots of the god sect." Xiang bowed his head looking, his eyes were full of surprise. In the three broken palaces, there were three oval-shaped lakes with such clear water that the bottom of the lakes could be seen, and strange radiant lights burst out. Inside each lake, there were three reflecting images of the sun, the moon, and the star respectively. In the middle of the sun lake, there was a motionless sun image which vaguely emitted faint lights. The moon lake was the same. The moon was like a big silver plate, radiating faint silver moonlight. Only the star lake was a little strange. In the star lake, countless stars, which were as big as a human fist, flickered like fireflies as they moved, following a magical trajectory. Sparkling starlight brought other people a strange, vibrant feeling. On the top of the halo, the water drops from the lights of the sun-moon star were condensed into white water droplets which dripped down on the three lakes sun-moon star. When the water droplets which were condensed by the sunlight fell into the sun lake, they seemed to have consciousness, slowly flying to the reflecting sun image and becoming a small part of it, making the image even brighter. The water droplets which had been condensed by the moonlight were also the same. Each milky white water droplet dripping into the moon lake also had consciousness, moving toward the reflecting moon image, making the moonlight even more radiant and moderate. However, water droplets which had been condensed by the light the stars in the sky were different. They were very accurate, falling directly into the stars inside the lake, fusing with them, making the star-reflecting images become more real. Looking at the star lake below, Xiang suddenly felt the magic of the universe. He also had a wonderful feeling that the star lake was like a galaxy with numerous misty twinkling stars which were slowly moving in accordance with the rule of the sky and earth, exceedingly marvelous and miraculous. These desolate palaces were the divine land of the three gods sect and also the center of the three islands sun-moon star. Tang Yuannan raised his head looking at the halo, revealed a smile and explained to Xiang, "On the top of our heads is the vast sea, and above it are the three islands sun-moon star. The three islands sun-moon star are, in fact, the eyes of the formation which gather the god powers of the sun, the moon, and the stars into the three lakes. During thousands of years, the collection of sunlight, moonlight, and starlight from the ether, in accordance with some marvelous way that we will never understand, has been purified and turned into milky white droplets that fall into the three lakes sun-moon star." Xiang was aghast. Holding his head up looking at the halo, then looking at the condensing water droplets, thinking about the things that Tang Yuannan had said, a strange idea suddenly popped into his mind. The principle of this three-god sect's big ancient formation was somehow even more magical than the solar energy of his other world. When he was still in his original world, he had known many ways to use solar energy or to take advantage of some specific materials to absorb the sun's energy, turning it into electricity for people to use. The three gods sect had made it more magical. They had taken advantage of the three islands Sun Moon Star and the halo above the desolated palaces to not only absorb the solar energy and the energy of countless stars in the sky but also to condense that power into milky white water droplets, forming magical energy for warriors to absorb directly. Obviously, the magic of the ancient formations here had far surpassed the solar energy of the other world. You have to know that the martial spirits of the three gods sect come from the three lakes Sun Moon Star. 4 newborn babies. If they are outstanding, soaking in these three lakes Sun Moon Star will give them the chance to create their own martial spirits and to absorb the strange energy of the sun, the moon, and the stars. Tang Yuan Nan said proudly, in many forces of the endless sea, martial spirits are already inside most of the warriors when they are born, instead of being formed after they are born. Only the three gods sect can take advantage of the three lakes Sun Moon Star to help babies who don't have martial spirits create their own martial spirits. We can say that the three gods sect creates martial spirits of warriors. Xiang nodded and said, yes. Our foundation of the gods sect is this place. The three islands Sun Moon Star above are only the eyes of the formation which maintain one part of this place's transformation. Those three islands above have plenty formation techniques, so even if Kai Yang with his tremendous power can break the great sun holy light, it would be difficult to smash down the three islands Sun Moon Star. Tang Yuan Nan revealed a faint smile, looked at Xiang and said, in other words, the foundation of the three gods sect is almost too hard to be shaken. As long as this place is not destroyed, our three gods sect will still be able to accumulate power and select outstanding newborn babies to train to become masters. Because of this, we can still develop even after the moon god has been gone 1,000 years. Xiang nodded once again. My sun martial spirit, your star martial spirit, and the moon martial spirit of the moon god have been created by the three lakes Sun Moon Star. They are the first martial spirits that have been condensed and created, covering the power of the whole Sun Moon Star. These three great martial spirits are different from those of other people. Not only can they condense more power from the sun, moon, and stars, but they can also evolve and inherit. That is probably the biggest masterpiece of the person who gave birth to this palace. Therefore, those who have the three great martial arts are also our gods sect Sun Moon Star gods. Tang Yuannan's eyes brightened up when he looked at Xiang and said, whether you admit it or not, the person who has the star martial spirit will be the three gods sect star god. As of now, you can soak yourself in the star lake and gather power to open the seal of the star martial spirit. After that, you will officially possess the star martial spirit. Xiang shuddered and faintly laughed. It would be disrespectful if I refused you. Chapter 344, Chapter 342, Stars Gathering Power. Chapter 344, Chapter 342, Stars Gathering Power. Xiang jumped into the star lake. The star lake looked like a circle of light moving in accordance with a strange trajectory. It was constantly absorbing light from countless stars, then condensing them into milky white water droplets. After each water droplet was added, the halo of the star power would increase a little more, and the starlight would become more brilliant. Soaking in the star lake, Xiang felt the water was freezing. The water seeped into his every pore. He felt very comfortable and refreshed while his spiritual consciousness was agitated. He didn't know how to open the star martial spirit, and thus, while soaking in the lake, he couldn't help but raise his head to look at Tang Yuannan, revealing his puzzled expression. Tang Yuannan smiled but didn't say a word nor explain anything. He seemed to think that Xiang, as the inheritance of the star god, would understand its mystery soon enough. Many disciples of the three gods sect had gathered here from everywhere, quietly surrounding the star lake, and curiously watching Xiang. They wanted to know not only the way which Xiang would use to open the star martial spirit that no one had opened in the past 1,000 years, but also what kind of phenomenon would happen after the star martial spirit was opened. Although those people were the core disciples of the Three Gods sect, most of them didn't know much about the three great martial spirits. They only knew that the inherited martial spirit of the three gods Sun, Moon, and Star were significantly mighty, but didn't know in detail how powerful those martial spirit actually were. When Xiang entered the Star Lake, the surrounding people, who had been initially boisterous, suddenly all quieted down. Tang Yuannan looked at him, thinking about the scene, which was about to happen. Xiang slightly knitted his eyebrows as he felt that something was wrong. He then contemplated for a moment before looking at Tang Yuannan and asking, "Is there something that I need to pay attention to? Why don't I feel anything?" Tang Yuannan faintly smiled and said indifferently, "Have you practiced the black formula?" Xiang surprisingly nodded. "If you activate the black formula, I think you can understand immediately." Tang Yuannan beamed a smile and replied. Without asking further, under other people's scrutinizing looks, Xiang slowly closed his eyes and quietly released his soul consciousness. While taking notice of all the changes around him, he was afraid that the Three Gods sect's disciples would take advantage of the moment he displayed the black formula to take action. The black formula was slightly activated. Many dots of light which freely moved. Inside the Star Lake suddenly changed their movement, following another trajectory. Xiang was startled, his face changed slightly while his heart was full of surprise. In the Star Lake, numerous spots of light flew toward him altogether. Those spots of light were like locusts covering the entire sky. They looked as if they had just been revived as many lights flashed up with elegant fluttering, making the Star Lake sparkle splendidly. Countless star dots of light were attracted to the three acupuncture points, Tangqiu Point, Shenqiu Point, and Yinju Point. However, they didn't create the negative force that infiltrated into acupuncture points but moved along the nerves and vessels straight to his heart. When the first spot of light penetrated his heart, Xiang suddenly felt his heart pounding. A wonderful force spread out from the Star Lake, enhancing the star power. Through his soul consciousness, he saw countless star spots in his heart simultaneously show like the starry sky, which was beautifully dazzling and bright. Those star spots attached to the heart of stars and quickly moved in a pattern which was the same as in the Star Lake. A marvelous soul force suddenly came out from it. Xiang's head was strongly convulsive. He felt that his host soul in the sea of consciousness somehow gently appeared there or was nourished by some force and then quickly seeped into his heart. He suddenly had a feeling of helplessness, his consciousness became blurred. It seemed that the host soul was about to enter a wonderful scene. Not good. Xiang's mind was agitated. As he wanted to resist the attraction force from the star martial spirit, he tried to gather his spirit but then realized the star martial spirit was like a huge magnet that had absorbed his host soul. No matter how hard he tried, he couldn't get rid of the influence of the star martial spirit. His consciousness became more and more blurred, as he gradually lost his ability to control his body. He found that in this state, it was difficult for him to resist the pressure from the outside. In this state, if the Three Gods sect's disciples had malicious intent to take advantage of his current state and seize the chance to murder him, he would not have the opportunity to resist. Not good. Maybe Xiang had been trapped in Tang Yuannan's trick. Before completely losing his consciousness, he suddenly had a thought and felt that Tang Yuannan had framed him this time. After that, he lost his consciousness. His host soul entered a path which was not very clear and was gradually sinking. Around the Star Lake, the Three Gods sect's disciples were silently watching Xiang with solemn faces. After a few elders of the Three Gods sect saw Xiang's shaking body and his soul aura which was becoming as weak as spider silk, they were all startled, shifting their eyes toward Tang Yuannan. The face of the elder who had been frozen by Xiang earlier became cheerful. He looked at the crowd and said, "Hierarchy, you already had your own calculation?" "Ah!" One disciple of the Three Gods sect who was as timid as a mouse, immediately moved backward, looking toward that elder with a puzzled face. To open the star martial spirit, he has to go through the experience where the soul has to merge with the star sea. In this state, his soul will temporarily leave his body and sink into the ninth heaven star ocean without any defense. This elder's eyes became cruel, he sneered faintly, Killing him now is as easy as flipping one's hand over. Even a Nirvana realm warrior can easily kill him. After his words were spoken, many disciples of the Three Gods sect flashed up with consideration as if they could now understand the scheme in Tang Yuannan's mind. Each of them nodded one by one, praising their hierarchy for being wise. This elder who had been defeated in the fight with Shiyang revealed a cold sneer, assuming that he had guessed Tang Yuannan's mind accurately. He clasped his hand and said, "Hierarchy, this kid's spirit has temporarily drifted to the outskirt. Can I obliterate him now? After that, you can take action, depriving the Star Martial spirit and then choose the new inheritance of the Star God." While speaking, he subconsciously walked toward the Star Lake, assuming that Tang Yuannan would praise him for his intelligence. Surrounding the Star Lake, many of the Three Gods sect's disciples quietly nodded, looking at Shiyang with unfriendly eyes. Shiyang's power and domineering deeds had dissatisfied many of them. In their eyes, Shiyang was too presumptuous, too young, and was not qualified to take on the important responsibilities. Thus, it was better to destroy him as early as possible. To have a new Star God for the Three Gods sect, the sooner Shiyang had to die, and the more favorable it would be for them. Sass. Tang Yuannan coldly harumphed. The 10,000 Zhonghai Sun God light diffused from his back. In just a blink, countless God lights had tied the elder up, not allowing him to move even an inch. The martial spirit on this elder was also the Sun martial spirit, but its level was far less than that of Tang Yuannan. Moreover, Tang Yuannan had a God realm cultivation base, and thus, as soon as he swung his arm up, that elder was instantly detained while the strength of his body was like being frozen. Hierarchy. The elder looked frightened, looked at Tang Yuannan with puzzled eyes, and felt deeply wronged at heart. When did I say that I want to kill him? Tang Yuannan looked cold. As soon as he triggered his mind, many flows of sun god lights went directly into the elder, burning his hair and beard into ashes, making his body violently tremble. Hierarchy, please spare my life. He finally felt panic, hurriedly kneeled down, and kept kowtowing Tang Yuannan, begging for his mercy. Tang Yuannan coldly snorted, slightly increasing a little more power to hurt the elder, and then stonily said, "Such short vision. Hierarchy mercy, hierarchy mercy." The elder continually kowtowed for mercy and no longer dared to say anything further. When other surrounding elders of the Three Gods sect saw Tang Yuannan's rage, all of them were as mute as a fish, not daring to utter a word to seek mercy for that elder. Tang Yuannan usually had a mild temper, but none of the elders dared to disrespect him. That year, to become the Sun God, Tang Yuannan had killed many of his opponents. In recent years, because of the Three Gods sect's development, Tang Yuannan had to humble himself, and thus, his cruelty had reduced a lot. Therefore, people seemed to forget his brutal years earlier. He presently looked stony and coldly took actions, which made many elders remember his ruthlessness before. Thus, they didn't dare to say anything. I haven't nodded for approval. You dare to move forward ready to take actions as I am nothing. As you do not respect your hierarchy, your title elder is removed, and you are not allowed to get involved in any matter of the sect for 100 years. Tang Yuannan emotionlessly looked at that elder and delivered his sentence. After that, he revealed a sneer, retrieved his hand, and said indifferently, "Shiyang is probably the strongest star god in our god sect's history. His future achievements will surpass all of the other predecessors. Because of the Three Gods sect's future, a sun god like me can still humble myself, bow my head, and call him God. For the Three Gods sect's future in unifying the whole endless sea, even the Grace mainland, honor is nothing. You have disappointed me deeply." After these words, the faces of the Three Gods sect's disciples, including the group of elders, all changed in fear. After that, they came to their senses and understood Tang Yuannan's cares and worries. For the future of the Three Gods sect, as the person in power of the Three Gods sect, Tang Yuannan even willingly bowed to concede. Such a heroic figure also painstakingly sacrificed himself. That made all the disciples of the Three Gods sect feel so ashamed. This is the best time for the Three Gods sect. We have already had a new moon god who has accumulated 1,000 years of moonlight. Once she enters the God realm, she is surely comparable to Cao Qiu Dao and Yang Yi Tian. Also, we have Shi Yang, who is an exceptionally outstanding talent. His future achievements will go beyond any ancestors. This precedent has never happened in the Three Gods sect's history before. The existence of these two people will bring a limitless successful future to the Three Gods sect. One day, the endless sea and the Grace mainland will be immersed in our Three Gods sect's radiant light. Tang Yuannan raised his head, looking at the curtain of light, including the sun-moon star with dreaming eyes. Our era can witness the flourishing time of the Gods sect. We have to consider ourselves fortunate and put all of our efforts to complete this goal tirelessly for our great future. Everyone sincerely kneeled down and kowtowed, looking at Tang Yuannan with respect. Chapter 345, Open the Inheritance. Chapter 345, Open the Inheritance. It was a gorgeous star sea. Countless sparkling stars filled the entire sky like a boundless sea of stars. There were only stars in this place. They were sometimes very close but sometimes seemed to be extremely far away from each other. Shi Yang's host soul appeared here in this immense star sea, where many strange dots of light glittered and flew out from the stars, penetrating his body. Each dot of light brought along a trace of memory which had been preserved deep inside the host soul. It was like he was wandering in the star sea aimlessly, feeling himself being drawn into the universe where nothing could be seen except for the starry sky. With numerous stars going into his body and those memories gathering, he gradually understood the mystery of the stars. The moving trajectory of the stars in the star sea was still taking place normally. Shi Yang suddenly flew up and stood on a star, seeing the dots of starlight covering his body. Although they didn't penetrate his body, he could feel tremendous star power and sense the eternal aura of the stars. He moved like a shooting star, dashing forward as if he could break through the boundaries of space with his indescribably fast speed. In the star sea, he kept jumping and dancing and gradually had more dots of light gathering on his body, forming a huge star encasement wrapping his entire body. The star encasement reflected the images of the stars, which were somewhat similar to what was displayed on the halo of the desolate palace. The difference was that the sun and the moon didn't appear on the star encasement. During his movement, he rubbed the dots of light, changing them into clusters of stars. The starlight in his hand could be changed into any shape. He could pull them as long as noodles, or he could ball them into a group and divide them into many strands of noodles. He became used to the star power, becoming more skillful in handling them. When he triggered his consciousness, numerous stars shot down from the sky. Under his control, the starlight fell like rain and every dot of starlight contained energy that surprised him. These energies could follow what his mind asked them to do or could form into ancient spiritual mind formations that went beyond his understanding. In the strange star sea, he flew at breakneck speed, perceiving the mystery of the star sea and the principles of the moving stars in his body. Then he was gradually familiar with the star power. He had comprehended some deep meanings. It was unknown how long it took for him to suddenly realize that the stars in the sky no longer had dots of light flying toward him and that his use of the star power had reached a profound realm. At this time, he also realized that in an extremely remote place, there seemed to be a sun which was shining all the way here. He subconsciously flew toward the sun, following the moving trajectory of the stars to cross the distant galaxy to get closer to the sun. However, after a long pursuit, he still couldn't see the sun nor any place that generated the lights. But, during the process of seeking the sunlight, he had profoundly perceived more about the star power. In the star sea, his soul was fluttering in the wind as if it was in a dream without the concept of time. It seemed that it had been a long time already, as he felt that his soul was gradually getting tired, and thus, he had the intention of leaving. His consciousness wanted to get out of the star sea. It finally became blurred again and fell into a channel, moving faster and faster. Shi Yang suddenly woke up. Looking around, he realized that he was still in the star lake. His host soul had returned to his sea of consciousness. Many dots of light in the star lake seemed to be much smaller than before, while the light became dimmer. The light curtain on the top of his head was still creating many milky white water droplets, dripping into the three lakes' sun dash. Moonstar. The water in the star lake remained just as clear as before, but the coldness was not there anymore. Looking at the star lake and the light curtain above his head, his eyes were dazed, seeming to be in meditation for perception. A long time later, his eyes gradually restored consciousness. He saw Tang Yuan and many disciples of the Three Gods sect gathering around the star lake, looking at him stunned. "Are you awake?" Tang Yuan beamed a smile and asked, "How do you feel?" "Very good." It was like entering the Milky Way, staying in the star sea to bathe for a while. "This feeling is hard to put into words." Xiang looked at Tang Yuan while he was in a daze for a while, and then revealed a friendly smile, nodded, and said, "I thought it was your trick. I thought that I would never wake up." As soon as Xiang said those words, the expression of many of disciples of the Three Gods sect became instantly strange. Tang Yuan's face remained unchanged. He laughed and said, "To get what?" Xiang didn't answer him immediately. He closed his eyes for a moment, and then his eyes suddenly brightened up again. He slowly left the Star Lake Sea. As he triggered his mind, plenty of dots of starlight in his heart flashed up altogether. In his body, the dots of starlight were gorgeous, and they then vanished into thin air. Under the numerous eyes of the Three Gods sect's disciples, Xiang suddenly disappeared. The crowd subconsciously looked around to find his trace in the desolate palace. They felt that he was everywhere but also nowhere. Starlight. Following the rules of the stars, opening the star martial spirit would make the stars move much faster, as if the light had extended across all space and boundaries. That was one kind of body shifting technique, which was even faster than the electric shift and could be compared with the starlight. This technique took advantage of the star martial spirit and the star power. Once the mind was triggered, the body would be like the starlight, which was the same as Tang Yuan when he could disappear into thin air, traveling thousands of miles away. His mind was ignited again. Countless starlight from his body emerged, forming a light shield covering his entire body. This light shield had plenty of stars. Star shield. After he had gathered the star power and condensed it into the starlight shield, this starlight shield would absorb the star power, making the star shield solid and immune to fire and water, and allowing it to withstand all kinds of energy impact. His consciousness slightly moved. The dots of starlight quickly transformed. Many dots of light in his palm changed according to his consciousness. All of them flew up straight into the sky altogether, forming a scene which looked like a small galaxy in the void. Plenty of lights gathered, sometimes changing in accordance with the star trajectory, creating a variety of star formations that ran following the principle of the sky and earth, and released the star power that gave people palpitations. Star manipulation. He now could freely use the star power and the movement of the stars to form marvelous star formations. Starlight, star shield, star manipulation. In this wonderful state, he had learned countless esoteric star powers, which had no difference when it was played out. In reality, these three kinds of secret memories used the force that came from the star martial spirit. He could now perform them skillfully as if he had actually known them and had just temporarily forgotten. Once he recalled, it was easy for him to master them thoroughly. The Three Gods sect's disciples attentively looked at him with astonished faces. Only Tang Yuan revealed a smile, as he seemed to have already known in advance that after Xiang woke up, he would become this way. He was satisfied within his heart as everything was going as he had planned. You have opened the star martial spirit and have gotten the three great esoteric inherited meanings of the star god. Tang Yuan beamed a smile while looking at him. Starlight, star shield, and star manipulation have taken advantage of the profound meanings of the star martial spirit to cast out, which is similar to martial techniques. However, the way you are performing them is merely borrowing the star power. Wait until you enter the sky realm. You can fuse the star power and profound chi. At that time, you will be able to realize numerous wonderful things. Xiang was startled as he secretly remembered it. He would try this fusion when he broke through the sky realm. You have entered the second sky of the Nirvana realm, not far from the sky realm. Tang Yuan looked at him and suddenly said in a low voice. Xiang was convulsive, slightly shouting, "What?" Ha ha ha, you really didn't notice it. Tang Yuannan laughed. The star martial spirit has been opened, your soul has fallen into the immense star sea, and you have perceived the moving principles of the star power in the world. Unknowingly, it has been 7 days. You were formerly at the first sky of the Nirvana realm. After 7 days of perceiving the principles, your soul was sublimated, and thus, making another step further is something logical and obvious. The second sky of the Nirvana realm, Shiyang was suspicious, attentively looked at his hand and limbs, then said, "Why don't I feel anything strange?" Your soul can fly out of the body, which is a sign to recognize the second sky of the Nirvana realm. Your soul has penetrated the star sea through the star martial spirit. So, if it is not the second sky of the Nirvana realm, what is it then? Tang Yuannan laughed and said. Shiyang was surprised. The breakthrough this time was a little more simple, which made him somehow puzzled. When you were still in the earth realm, you had already formed the sea of consciousness, and the host soul was being refined. That is the cultivation way for a warrior to enter the Nirvana realm. Even before reaching the Nirvana realm, you had started cultivating the host soul and the sea of consciousness. Once you officially have a breakthrough, the cultivation speed will be very fast. Tang Yuannan explained. Listening to what Tang Yuannan said, Shiyang totally came to his senses. It turned out that when he was in the earth realm, he had cultivated the sea of consciousness and the host soul, and had subconsciously entered the Nirvana realm. It was just that he hadn't been aware of it. Plenty of warriors outside are searching for you. Many forces in the endless sea are also looking for you. Numerous people want to kill you. Tang Yuannan stopped smiling and said with a solemn face, "During this time, you better not go out, just stay here for now. Otherwise, you will be hard." Boom. Before Tang Yuannan could finish his talk, the halo above their heads exploded, transmitting a loud explosive sound. The moon which had been on the halo disappeared all of a sudden. Tang Yuannan raised his head looking up, his face dramatically changed. Chapter 346, Star Wings. Chapter 346, Star Wings. Above the desolate group of palaces, the curtain of light burst out, producing an explosive sound. In that echoing sound, the moon disappeared. The sun and the stars were still there, but the moon had vanished into thin air. The disappearance of the moon led to disharmony of the scene. Tang Yuannan raised his head looking at the scene before him with a pale face and exclaimed, "This is not good." Shiyang didn't understand either as he held his face up looking at the halo and asked, "What is happening?" "The Moon Island has been destroyed." Tang Yuannan gritted his teeth and angrily said, "At least, the formation on the Moon Island has been smashed down. Otherwise, the halo would not change like that. The moon god is still on the island. I don't know what her current situation is. I have to go there to see. The situation in the endless sea is now extremely chaotic. Perhaps I have been staying here for too long." After he spoke, Tang Yuannan was about to turn and leap up. Shiyang immediately spoke up right before Tang Yuannan left, "Bring me with you. I don't want to stay here either." The more chaotic the endless sea was, the greater the chance he could have. He wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to reinforce his realm and borrow the dead's energy to strengthen himself. After waking up from his marvelous state, he realized that the beam of profound chi light had stopped absorbing the energy from the swirl in his abdomen. Although the power which had been created by the fusion of the Holy Spirit God, the ice-cold flame, and the earth flame, was huge, it still faded away with time. He understood that the reason he was able to compete with Ma Chi-dun and freeze the elder of the three gods sect was for the mysterious effect of the swirl created by the integration of the Holy Spirit God, the ice-cold flame, and the earth flame. The icy power of the ice-cold flame could transform an island into an icy river, while the earth flame was like 10,000-year burning fires which had accumulated the power of the sky and earth. Meanwhile, the Holy Spirit God had been created by fusing with the icy crystal bone dragon and had gathered a large amount of force of faith from many believers of the Holy Spirit sect simultaneously. However, this force didn't really belong to him. He vaguely felt that the fusion of the three great living forms would soon end and that their energy would quickly fade away. Once Their energy separated from the swirl, his true ability would be exposed. Taking advantage of the time when these three great living forms were still in that swirl and when he still had the strength, he had to take part in the chaotic war happening in the endless sea. He needed to kill some people to get their aura through the mysterious martial spirit so that the mutation of the martial spirit in his body could be completed. Looking at his red-purple right arm, Xiang felt excited, thinking that the petrifaction martial spirit could be completed this time. "You want to go up there?" Tang Yuan asked as he was going to the transfer formation in the middle of the desolate palaces, but suddenly turned around and frowned. 7 days ago, when you and Ma Qidun fought, the group of Jiyu Shao, Yu Qin, Cao Zhilan, and Man Jiyu were on the mountain peak of the Jiyu family and watched your entire battle through the Huan Ting. Your strong potential agitated them. I could feel their fear. 7 days after I brought you away, the Jiyu family and the Heaven Lake Divine Land all knew that the pagans who had formerly followed you were now under the demon dwellers' command. They immediately united with other forces in the endless sea to hunt you down. Xiang's face suddenly darkened. Presently, in the Kiara Sea, the demon dwellers are engaged in many fights with all of the forces from all over. If you come out this time, I think that both sides will be very excited to target you. As long as they find your trail, they will send their masters to kill you. Even though you now look powerful, I know that it is not your true strength. I believe that you cannot maintain that power forever. Once this force disappears, you will soon be killed. Tang Yuan looked solemn and sincerely advised, "Stay here for now and wait until the situation is stable, then you can leave. Furthermore, after going out, it's best for you to leave the endless sea quickly. Momentarily, the endless sea cannot cover for you. I need to go out to the battlefields." Xiang didn't want to explain, and also explain the mystery of the martial spirit in his body. He stepped inside the transfer formation. Tang Yuan was astonished. "I have my reasons." After having contemplated for a while, Xiang looked at Tang Yuan and said, "Don't be worried. I will not die that easily. On the contrary, those who want to kill me have to pay a high price." Tang Yuan seemed to be puzzled and carefully looked at Xiang. After a long while, he nodded and said, "It seems that you already have a plan of your own. If so, I will not be reluctant anymore." Without saying anything further, 81 sunbeams suddenly burst out from Tang Yuan's body. Every ray of light accurately hit the transfer formation. A group of dazzling lights flashed up. Tang Yuan and Xiang left the seabed and appeared on a deserted island. The deep sky was filled with countless glittering stars. When each star flashed, it seemed that some kind of energy was descending from the sky and was infiltrating Xiang's body. In the night, Xiang raised his head to look up at the sky, feeling the absorption of the star martial spirit toward the starlight in the sky. He slightly triggered his mind and realized that many dots of light were moving inside his heart, coincidentally following the principle of the sky and earth. Ah! Xiang's face changed as he looked at the moon, which was like a silver plate in the sky. He couldn't help but scream, "That is." In the night, the silver moonlight appeared and quickly gathered, creating a big flow of light, projecting a beautiful figure that was floating around in the air. That pretty figure was drifting around in the moonlight. The small charming body was enveloped in a curtain of light, looking like a legendary fairy in a dream that gave people an unreal feeling. She seemed to be able to absorb the essence of the moonlight and gather it. Although he was standing tens of thousands of miles away, Xiang still felt the vastness of the misty fantasy and felt that the moon's reflection was not real. The new moon god is indeed an outstanding talent. Tang Yuan was convulsive. His eyes were flooded with joy and excitement. She has entered the spirit realm. With the anomaly of the moon martial spirit which absorbed 1,000 years of the moonlight, once she enters the spirit realm, she can be compared with the innate heroes like Cao Qiudao and Yang Yitian of the Endless Sea. This is really the best time of our god's sect. The spirit realm. Xiang dazedly looked at that vague beautiful figure under the moonlight and then mumbled to himself with a lower voice before looking at Tang Yuan again and saying, "I think your worry is redundant. If she has reached the spirit realm, she will surely be safe. It is obvious. Unless Cao Qiudao and Yang Yitian take action, No one in the endless sea can harm her. Tang Yuan laughed joyfully and then turned around to look at Shiyang. You have met her before, haven't you? I am sure you two have met. When you arrived at the Sun Island, she wanted to see you, but after that, forget it. I have something to do. Shiyang interrupted Tang Yuan, turned his head around to identify the direction and then said, I am going to the Snow Dragon Island to see the current situation over there. You don't know how to aerial travel, do you? Tang Yuan was astonished. Shiyang beamed a faint smile, activating the star martial spirit. People could only see many dots of starlight gathered around his body, forming into a thin circle of light. As soon as this circle of light had been created, Shiyang controlled it and divided it into two, forming into two wings which were as thin as that of a locust. In just a split second, he had leaped up to the sky and turned into a beautiful starlight, flying away. Star wings. This is the derivation of the star shield. It took advantage of the division of the star shield to form a pair of starlight wings and borrowed the star power to help Nirvana realm warriors pierce the sky and fly freely. It was indeed wonderful. Under innumerable stars, when displaying the star wing, Shiyang could feel many star powers that he hadn't recognized before pouring into the star wings. To use the star wings, it required the star martial spirit. Once the star wings were condensed and refined, they would keep absorbing the star power from the sky which helped Shiyang fly. Therefore, he didn't consume any of the profound chi when using the star wings to fly. The speed of the star wings depended on the magnitude of the starlight contained within. The stronger the star power was, the faster the speed of the star wings could be. When all the starlight in the star wings were stimulated, it would form the star fleeting, which could move 1,000 miles in just a blink. In the night sky, Shiyang urged the star wings to head to the Snow Dragon Island. He looked at the sky from time to time, feeling the star power's infusion, quietly activating the star manipulation, trying a method of controlling the starlight. Beautiful combinations of the star formations continually emerged from within his palm. While flying, he also used his mind to perceive the star's principles. A violent life fluctuation suddenly came in from the reef area which was 800 miles ahead. Indulging in the comprehension, Shiyang suddenly woke up, his sea of consciousness slightly moved as his host soul spread out the soul consciousness. A marvelous feeling appeared within his heart all of a sudden. He found himself being as though he had countless eyes which allowed him to see the entire scene clearly with the spread of his soul consciousness. In all directions, the sky was clear, and the sea was blue. Wherever the soul consciousness passed through, the scene of those places openly emerged in his mind. It was an amazing kind of comprehension. Previously, when he had released his soul consciousness, he could still have perceived something, but it was like the blind groping for things, as he could only feel the object and perceive the existence of it. It was different now. Wherever this soul consciousness was, it was like he himself was present there as he could clearly see every single commotion. Each flow of soul consciousness was like one heaven eye of his. As soon as his soul consciousness spread through the area with familiar life fluctuation, he suddenly recognized a few acquaintances. Chapter 347, Slaughter. Chapter 347, Slaughter. On a boat of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland sailing in the sea, the group of Chenduo and Dong Fanghe was fighting with around 10 demon dwellers of the Black Scales tribe. The 10 demon dwellers of the Black Scales tribe were covered with black scales, and their cultivation base was not low. All of them were holding sharp weapons of the demon area, constantly attacking Chenduo and Dong Fanghe. Among these demon dwellers, there was a guy with a cultivation base similar to Chenduo's, the Sky Realm. He was holding a big curved horn. This curved horn was obviously from a demon beast. It was 3 meters long and could produce many ear-piercing sounds, hurting many disciples of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland so much that they had to cover their ears and screamed out in agony. Chenduo's fingers were filled with many rings. He stood on the boat motionlessly while his rings flashed up with plenty of colorful lights. People could see a small silver sword, 3 blue square stones, 1 red fireball respectively hanging in front of his chest, behind his back, and on the top of his head. These 3 strange secret treasures seemed to have some spiritual relation with Chenduo. Following his mind, these secret treasures transformed, rotated, and sometimes flew toward the demon dwellers who were besieging and bombarding his group with their attacks. The 3 beautiful square blue stones were only moving around the top of his head, scattering out blue lights that were wrapping around him. The red fireball and the small silver sword took turns to besiege and attack the demon dweller who was holding the curved horn. Holding the curved horn in his hand and waving it violently in the air, the demon dweller of the Black Scales tribe furiously roared and didn't seem to be intimidated by Chenduo's attacks. His curved horn looked to be quite heavy and didn't seem to be easily broken by anything. Chenduo had to scream out every time his small silver sword collided with the curved horn. Chenduo focused his power mainly on the demon dweller with the curved horn. The secret treasures on his body flashed up from time to help the Spirit Treasure Wonderland's disciples around him. When he saw them encountering danger, he immediately used his secret treasures to help them. As Dongfang's cultivation base was lower than that of Chenduo, his opponents were usually the Nirvana realm demon dwellers. The other 5 or 6 disciples of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland, who were probably Chenduo's servants, only had the Disaster Realm cultivation base. Hence, they looked extremely panicked as they seemed to lack brutal combat experience. Currently, there were 3 corpses of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland's disciples on the boat. Their flesh and blood mixed, which looked like they had been crushed and torn apart by the demon dwellers, and thus, their bodies were not intact. There were 2 demon dwellers' dead bodies of the Black Scales tribe floating on the sea. They had probably died not long ago. Blood was still gushing out. 2 females of the Yin-Yang Wonderland, who were wearing beautiful clothes and exposing their appealing bodies through their thin blouses, had blushing faces, and their eyes were flooded with panic. They were covering their mouths but couldn't stop themselves from screaming. Xiang released his star wings and quietly hovered above the heads of the people who were fighting below. He beamed a faint smile while his face remained cold. Chenduo suddenly felt something was wrong and couldn't help but raise his head to look up at the sky, and frighteningly cry out loud, "Xiang!" Dongfang's face changed in fear. He suddenly grinned, looked at the demon dwellers in front of him and said, "That guy is Xiang of the Yang family. I am sure that you have also received the order to kill him at all cost." Dongfang he pointed to Xiang who was hovering in the sky, disclosing his identity. After hearing so, the 2 demon dweller leaders who were fighting with Chenduo and Dongfang he subconsciously held their heads up looking at Xiang and then quickly talked to the rest of the Black Scales tribe's demon dwellers. After that, all of the ferocious Sky Realm demon dwellers brutally roared, ignoring Chenduo and storming toward Xiang. Chenduo's fat face shook while he kept sneering. He didn't hesitate either, quickly pulling out his small silver sword and the red fireball. They flew up to the sky together and were aimed at Xiang. The other 2 Sky Realm warriors, who were fighting with the demon dwellers, also changed their targets after hearing what Dongfang had said. Xiang had initially intended to play the role of a fisherman. However, as he saw both sides were taking actions at the same time, he suddenly laughed with a cold look on his face. "That is very good. Starlight." As soon as he triggered his mind, his body changed anomalously, and instantly descended on the boat. The surging power from the swirl in his abdomen, which had been created by the fusion of the Holy Spirit God, the Earth Flame, and the Ice-Cold Flame, burst out. The tremendous power quickly ran along his left arm. After a short moment, the skin and flesh of his left arm cracked open, which was extremely painful. The power from the fusion of those 3 living forms was incredibly mighty and far surpassed his limit. These energies flowed to his left arm, which caused him to encounter the backfire. Even his bones popped a brittle sound and apparently broke afterward. The life seal. This violent force finally fell into his palm, and each huge handprint appeared one by one. 7 handprints, each of which was as big as a mountain with beautiful crystal radiance, instantly stacked over each other, while the tremendous power soared up many times. 7 seals merged into one. The crystal lights of the huge handprint shot out everywhere. An earth-shaking power appeared. The life seal with its overwhelming, destructive power rushed toward Chenduo, which made him extremely frightened. His 10 fingers moved crazily. Different kinds of the best secret treasures flew out, forming more than 10 formation techniques to resist one strike of the life seal strenuously. However, the life seal, which had been formed by the 3 living forms, was unbreakable. It instantly smashed down all formation techniques. The seal's impetuous power dashed straight to Chenduo's fat body. Boom! Chenduo's obese body suddenly flew up and broke the boat's terrace, which was like shells shooting straight up to the sky. Blood splashed everywhere. Some disciples of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland that were standing next to Chenduo also couldn't escape from the same consequence. They were crushed into meat pies by the life seal and died on the spot. The 2 female disciples of the Yin-Yang Wonderland, who were as beautiful as flowers, were scared to death, screaming loudly while quickly avoiding that blow. As these 2 girls were quite far away from Chenduo, they were lucky enough to escape from this fatal strike. As Don Fanghe was opposite to Chenduo, he didn't get affected by that strike, but his face was ashen, and his heart was frozen like ice. Having launched only one blow, Shiyang had brutally killed Chenduo. Without waiting for Chenduo's fat body to fall into the sea, Shiyang suddenly flashed up and instantly appeared behind Dong Fanghe. "You dare to touch me? I will make you regret this." Dong Fanghe screamed in fear. Shiyang remained as calm as if he didn't hear this threat. He lifted his right arm, launching a blow on the opponent's nape. Bang! Dong Fanghe's head burst like a watermelon, splattering everywhere. Blood splashed all over Shiyang's body. After Dong Fanghe had died, Shiyang kept displaying the starlight, following the moving trajectory of the stars to continue the slaughter. Horrendous power on his right arm was quickly activated. The strange thing was that his arm was safe and sound, not having a backfire, which was different from what happened to his left arm. The life seal appeared again and instantly covered Chenduo. Chenduo's body had been crushed into pieces of flesh meat, scattering everywhere. In an instant, Chenduo and Dong Fanghe were easily killed. Shiyang slightly laughed, turned around looking at the flock of demon dwellers. However, after turning around, he realized that more than 10 demon dwellers were all long gone. They must have run a few miles away already. The Sky Realm demon dweller, who had formerly fought with Chenduo, threw the curved horn out while his body was still in the air. That curved horn turned into a bunch of demon lights bringing along an unprecedented momentum. With a quick glance, its power seemed to be pretty strong. Raising his eyebrows, Shiyang was ready to take action but then realized that the curved horn which was approaching him had mysteriously disappeared. At the same time, that Sky Realm warrior had also vanished. Releasing his soul consciousness, Shiyang detected that the flock of demon dwellers appeared to be 10 miles away, using all of their effort to escape. He coldly harumphed within his heart. He wasn't in a hurry to chase after them. Instead, he collected the dead bodies of Chenduo and the others, throwing them to a corner of the boat. After that, he stood motionlessly, looking at 2 beautiful female disciples of the Yin-Yang Wonderland with strange eyes. Don't kill us. We will serve you." One of them licked her red lips, uttered with a soft voice, but she couldn't hide the fear in her eyes. The body of the other one trembled, slightly gritting her teeth while her face was pale. Shiyang's fiery cruelty frightened these 2 girls out of their wits. They didn't have any idea of how to escape. They could only use their godsend properties to beg for their lives. Shiyang didn't say a word, his eyes were cold without any emotion. He quietly absorbed the auras of the group of Chenduo and Dong Fanghe. After one had died, the aura would disappear shortly, returning to heaven and earth. Therefore, he had to absorb the aura before it disappeared. Otherwise, if he missed this best time, he would get nothing. Because of this reason, he hadn't hurriedly chased after the demon dwellers when he saw that they had run away. Chenduo had the Sky Realm cultivation base. Dong Fanghe was in the second sky of the Nirvana realm. Together, with the other Disaster Realm disciples of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland, their auras satisfied Shiyang very much. The aura from Chenduo's body was several times much more than that of the others. Shiyang could feel pain when Chenduo's aura seeped into his meridians, and thus, he knew how powerful it was. The auras of Dong Fanghe and the other disciples had been entirely absorbed while only 1/3 of Chenduo's aura had gone into Shiyang's body. That made Shiyang extremely pleased. After a while, when the group of Chenduo and Dong Fanghe became dry mummies, Xiang satisfyingly released a sigh. He then suddenly moved to the two female disciples of the yin-yang wonderland. With each of them in hand, he activated the star wings and flew away, disappearing in a blink. Chapter 348, Mutating Again. Chapter 348, Mutating Again. Reef Area. Looking at the mummies lying on the broken boat of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland, the faces of the 5 Spirit Treasure Wonderland's warriors were grave and darkened. The leader, who was the elder Shu Hao of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland, took off the rings on Chenduo's fingers one by one. And then murmured, "Elder Chenduo, what kind of demon dwellers did you encounter that you couldn't even escape?" As being also one of the elders of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland, Shu Hao knew Chenduo's tricks as well as his secret treasures. Some of them could help the user instantly get out 1,000 miles away from the battlefield. Chenduo was a cautious person. If he didn't see that he could win, he would use his secret treasure to flee right away. Besides, he also had Dong Fanghe of the Dongfang family, who was famous for his ruthlessness and also had some life-saving secret treasures. The death of these two guys frightened Shu Hao very much. After having examined the situation carefully, he took out a yin stone and reported the situation. But he was dead. Even though it was 1 sea away, the news of Chenduo's death was quickly transmitted to the Spirit Treasure Wonderland in the Blackwater Sea. After having received the news, the palace master of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland, Qiuzun, immediately contacted Jiyu Shao. "It's Xiang." On the 1,000 Swords Peak of the Jiyu family, when Jiyu Shao carefully listened to Qiuzun explaining the situation, Cao Jilan instantly reacted and said with astonishment, "How can you know it was him?" Jiyu Shao stroked the 3bu-long sword and looked at a cluster of white clouds in the sky. His 2 fingers slightly moved and the blue sword instantly shot out, piercing. Another god sword. The god swords on the 1,000 Swords Peak were like a living resonance, bursting out into strange sounds. The sword lights flashed up under the moonlight. The sword lights in the sky above the 1,000 Swords Peak were interwoven with each other, creating a brilliant sword curtain. The sword aura was sharp and it could make the auras of heaven and earth shake. Song of the Divine Sword. When we entered the chasm battlefield, we had fought with Xiang. The warriors who died under his hands all had this same appearance. The auras of their bodies disappeared, and they became dry corpses. Cao Jilan gently released a light sigh. Her beautiful eyes flashed a trace of stress, but she finally spoke up. "This is probably a kind of evil secret technique, or it might be caused by some secret treasure." Chenduo and Dong Fang he used to have conflicts with him when they were on Sun Island. Tang Yuan had covered for him. This Xiang will not have mercy if he is strong enough to kill his opponents. Looking at the formation technique on the 1,000 Swords Peak, Jiyu Shao slightly nodded. "All right, I will inform this news of Xiang's appearance in the Endless Sea to other forces and tell them to be aware of his whereabouts. Even if he has the God Realm cultivation base, as long as his trail is revealed, he cannot escape from the pursuits from all directions, not to mention the fact that demon dwellers were also searching for him." Cao Jilan was helpless and wanted to say something but finally decided to keep silent, only her eyelids slightly shivered. Looking at the twinkling stars of the night, she had a surging feeling of bitterness within her heart. Following her family's orders, she had to realize the reality in the struggle of reason and emotion. And her reason had won. On a crumbled rock heap, there were dark red rocks with odd shapes scattered everywhere. Under the moonlight and the starlight, these rocks were like phantoms lurking in the warriors' hearts. 2 graceful female bodies were lying down on a flat rock. Their clothes had been torn apart, they were lying on their side on the rock, their faces reddened. They were powerlessly gasping for breath while gazing at the mesmerizing sky with dazed eyes. 10 meters away from there, Xiang was sitting on a square stone with his bare upper body. He slowly closed his eyes while some red lights were moving on his body. Between him and the 2 female disciples of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland was a pile of torn clothes. Under the starlight, Xiang looked solemn while he was cultivating in the selfless realm, not paying attention to the situation around him. Nobody knew what he was condensing with all of his strength. Vague white mist floated around him without dispersing, moving along with the sea breeze like drifting clouds. A long while later, the two female disciples of the Spirit Treasure Wonderland had recovered a little bit of their strength, leaning their back against the rock, exchanging looks. They saw traces of teeth and scratches on each other's breasts. However, they didn't feel embarrassed as it was a normal thing, and wasn't worthy for them to be angry. The wild scene earlier flashed across their minds. Shiyang had been like a violent beast violating them. His glowing red eyes had extremely frightened them. The two of them quietly looked at Shiyang, who was meditating from a distance. Although they didn't say anything, they were using their eyes to communicate. Gradually, a trace of ruthlessness appeared in their eyes as they felt that this was their only chance. One of them attentively observed Shiyang's commotions, while the other one sneakily gathered her profound qi, restored the strength of her numb limbs and then quietly stood up. Suddenly, these two girls leaped up to the sky. A jade dagger and bronze brooch simultaneously shot out icy lights toward Shiyang. When their attacks almost hit Shiyang, the starlight abruptly appeared, instantly condensing into the star shield. Countless star points moved accordingly to the mysterious trajectory of the star shield, shortly converging to form a fist-sized star point. The two girls' attack sharply hit right at that point of light. The star point burst out. Plenty of broken smaller star points followed the dagger and the brooch to penetrate their bodies. Boom! The soft bodies of the two girls from the Spirit Treasure Wonderland suddenly trembled as their bones burst out like firecrackers. Everything was crushed, even their internal organs were fragmented. Their paralyzed bodies fell on the ground. The ruthlessness in their eyes had all gone. Fear from their souls spread out all over their bodies while their auras were instantly emptied out, becoming two shriveled bodies. Shiyang, who was sitting upright, cultivating devotedly on the square rock, suddenly opened his eyes. He threw a glance at the two girls' corpses and beamed a sneer from the corner of his mouth. He then slowly closed his eyes again and continued his devoted cultivation. Many rays of red-purple light on his left arm were moving inside his muscles, making the left arm much heavier as if it had been tied up with 1,000 kilograms of rocks. The red-purple light on his left arm was becoming more and more beautiful. Shiyang's body slightly trembled, even his sea of consciousness was also compulsive. His left arm became purple-red. The strange, mysterious force and profound qi in his entire body had fused with each other, slowly transforming his two arms. Mutant martial spirit. Once the mutation started, it couldn't stop. Unless it had absorbed all the peculiar force and his profound qi, it would not end. The mysterious force at 720 acupuncture points and the profound qi crazily spewed out and then turned into many flows of light which moved like lightning, quickly condensing the fusion at his two arms and carrying on with a marvelous transformation. The profound qi ancient tree in the middle of the swirl now became vague. With the loss of profound qi, it turned to be transparent, gradually shrank, and completely disappeared in the end. Shiyang was still silent, indulging in the mutation of the martial spirit. Under the moonlight, the moon god Ouyang Lu Shuang was like a moon fairy. The moonlight covered her entire body while she was silently meditating in the middle of the bright lights. On the Moon Island, numerous demon dwellers from the fourth demon area with brutal and bloodthirsty eyes all raised their heads looking up at the sky. Two demon masters, Cindy and Arig, were standing on the bone boat, divine craft demon god. They came here from the Sun Island. Under the moonlight, the moon god seemed to be immersed in a miraculous scene and didn't know that the enemy was coming close. With the moonlight enclosing her body, she was indulging in an immortal perception. The white-bone divine craft demon god shook violently. On the bottom of the boat, Jiao Hani's body, which was lying in the ice crystal coffin, was suddenly wrapped by rolling demon aura. The host soul of Demon King Kaiyang descended and borrowed Jiao Hani's body to enter the endless sea. A stream of demon light flashed up as the coffin stopped in front of the moon god Ouyang Lu Shuang. Kaiyang indifferently looked at the moon god who was submerged in the moonlight, and didn't say anything while his 10 fingers pressed down from the void. Heavenly demon binding net. Along with Kaiyang's shout, his 10 fingers spread out infinitely. His 10 fingers were like 10 big nets, each of which seemed to be woven from demonic dragon's tendons and shining black lights that covered the sky. These nets, which were like 10 huge heaven nets shielding the moonlight, approached from all directions enclosing Ouyang Lu Shuang. The moon was bright, but its brilliant lights were totally blocked by those 10 nets. On the divine craft demon god, when the two demon masters Xindia and Arig saw Kaiyang display heavenly demon binding net, their faces instantly loosened and they felt that this new moon god would soon be exterminated. The moonlight was like silver water, with Ouyang Lu Shuang as the center, diffused around, striking Kaiyang's nets. Silver lights and demonic lights collided. Beautiful dazzling lights sparked in the dark. It was like fireworks were set off in the sky above the moon island as many colorful lights burst out. In the strange lights all over the sky, 10 of Kaiyang's nets combined in an attempt to tie up the opponent tightly. After the 10 nets completely locked the sky, Kaiyang concentrated his mind to have a careful look, and then his eyelids slightly shivered. The moon god Ouyang Lu Shuang had escaped from the space blockade and had left from the heavenly demon binding net. Master Kaiyang, that woman, Xindia flew over from the divine craft demon god, stood behind Kaiyang and couldn't help but ask. She's fled. Kaiyang knitted his eyebrows, turned around throwing a glance at Cinder, and then said, from now on, in the endless sea, except for the 3 people including Yang Yi Tian, Cao Qiu Dao, and Yang Tian Emperor, there is another one who can be a threat to our great plan. Remember, if you see her next time, as long as you feel the situation is not good, you will have to escape immediately. Do not hesitate. Xindia looked aghast. The Corpse Soul Bridge has only one step left to be completed. You have to pull forth all of your effort to overcome the obstacles and search for Xiang's trail at the same time. Kill at first sight. Kaiyang said. Master, is Xiang important? Xindia was puzzled and asked. He has relied on the external force to injure Ma Qidun. So, once that external force is gone, he will not have anything left and become an ordinary kid. Is he worthy of your attention? The boundless demon saber that Bozun has gotten from another space is one of the 3 great demon sabers from the remote antiquity, yet it has still been destroyed by that kid's sword. If he enters the god realm one day, with that god's sword, no one in the endless sea can stop him. Kaiyang coldly snorted and said. After a short pause, Kaiyang continued, even I cannot. Xindia was startled, kneeled down on the ground, and said in fear, I understand. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.